Introduction. Arya Stark, a resilient young girl navigating the whirlpool of fate, has a life journey replete with twists and challenges. In the globally acclaimed television series Game of Thrones, she emerges as a pivotal character. Her candid charm, bravery, and intelligence are indelibly etched in the hearts of every viewer, becoming an everlasting memory. As the plot unfolds, Arya faces the devastation wrought by Daenerys as she razes King's Landing, subjecting its citizens to unprecedented calamity. In this darkest hour, destiny smiles upon Arya, heralding an adventure that alters her fate. With her courage and wisdom, she successfully shifts the course of history, averting numerous tragedies. Chapter 1. The Cunning Euron Greyjoy. Daenerys reclined upon her beloved Drogon, soaring through the skies alongside the green dragon Rhaegal, racing towards Dragonstone. Drogon, this magnificent dragon, displayed a tenderness as unyielding as steel, providing Daenerys with the staunchest support. The profound bond between them shone like the stars in the heavens, clearly visible and deeply felt. Suddenly, the tranquil sky was pierced by the sharp whistling of arrows slicing through the air. Instinctively, Daenerys looked up, witnessing several massive projectiles hurtling towards Drogon and Rhaegal. The smile on her face froze, replaced by an expression of incredulous shock. Rhaegal was struck, an immense arrow penetrating his chest and neck, blood staining his body and blossoming into crimson flowers against the backdrop of the sky. The once vibrant and majestic life faded away before Daenerys' eyes. His gaze lingered with a final plea, a yearning for life and loyalty to his queen. Then, like a fallen autumn leaf, his body succumbed to gravity, crashing into the sea with a splash. Daenerys' heart bled, her world crumbling. Yet, she understood that she could not falter, could not allow the agony of loss to shatter her resolve. She caressed Drogon's back, urging him to ascend higher and higher. The cruel arrows arced in the distance, but could no longer reach them. On the surface of the sea, the imp Tyrion and Grey Worm stood at the bow of their ship, witnessing Rhaegal's tragic fate. Before they could react effectively, the incoming arrows struck the ship's hull, shattering the once sturdy vessel as if it were mere kindling. The crew, driven by instinct, leapt into the sea to evade the pursuing projectiles. Not far away, the cunning Euron Greyjoy wore a maniacal grin, operating the massive crossbow developed by the Maester Qyburn. He resembled a ruthless hunter, scanning the skies for the trace of Drogon and Daenerys, his eyes alight with cruelty and malevolence. His fleet was armed with this formidable weapon, while others unleashed a barrage upon Daenerys' ships. Before long, the Unsullied suffered devastating losses, with those still breathing desperately swimming towards the shore. Daenerys felt a profound anguish, yet she knew she must remain strong. She guided Drogon towards Dragonstone, ultimately reaching safety. On the shore, Grey Worm struggled to emerge from the water, calling out for Missandei. In the chaos of the tumultuous sea, he was oblivious to the fact that Missandei had already fallen into Euron's clutches and was offered as a gift to Queen Cersei. Dragonstone, the ancestral home of House Targaryen and Daenerys' vital strategic stronghold on the continent of Westeros, was soon to witness a fierce battle for the Iron Throne. Before embarking on a campaign in the north against the Night King, Daenerys had allied with Lady Olenna Tyrell and Ellaria Sand to confront House Lannister. Olenna's kin perished in the inferno orchestrated by Cersei, while Ellaria witnessed the brutal murder of the Red Viper Oberyn by Cersei's guard, Gregor Clegane. These harrowing experiences forged an unyielding hatred in Olenna and Ellaria toward House Lannister. Ultimately, upon Tyrion's suggestion, they devised a battle plan. Grey Worm led the Unsullied in a naval assault on Casterly Rock, while Ellaria, Yara, and Oberyn's three daughters assembled a fleet in the Iron Islands, with Lady Olenna returning to Highgarden to prepare provisions for war. Daenerys once sought counsel from Olenna, who simply advised, "You are a dragon, be a dragon." However, in the ensuing battle, Tyrion did not foresee Cersei's treachery. Grey Worm's forces encountered an empty city. Casterly Rock was manned only by the elderly and infirm. As they attacked, all their ships were destroyed by Lannister forces, while Jaime launched a surprise assault on Highgarden, poisoning Lady Olenna and seizing vast supplies and gold. Ellaria and Yara were ambushed at sea by Euron, suffering grievous losses, and Oberyn's daughters fell victim to the carnage. Euron presented Ellaria, Yara, and Oberyn's surviving daughter as unparalleled gifts to Cersei. In this audacious raid, Euron not only felled Rhaegal, significantly diminishing Daenerys' strength, but also captured Missandei, one of Daenerys' most trusted and cherished allies. Euron could not suppress his glee, envisioning Cersei's capitulation to his formidable prowess. Chapter 2. The Bell Tolls for King's Landing. Upon her return to Westeros, Daenerys found her newly formed alliance at Dragonstone swiftly undermined by Cersei's machinations. Enraged, Daenerys resolved to heed Lady Olenna's counsel, taking to the skies on her dragon to assault King's Landing after dispatching the Lannister forces that had raided Highgarden. However, following Jon's visit and his revelation of the precarious situation in the north, she resolutely chose to postpone her vengeance. Jon led a select team beyond the frozen wall, in pursuit of a white to reveal the impending threat of the Long Night, urging the living to unite against the Night King's army or face utter futility. When Jon's team found themselves in dire straits, Daenerys did not hesitate to deploy her 3 dragons for their rescue. Yet, the mission was fraught with peril. One dragon, Viserion, tragically fell to the Night King. Ultimately, Daenerys bravely led her forces into the north, winning the war for the living, only to be ensnared once more by Cersei's treachery. With Missandei captured and Rhaegal slain by Euron, Daenerys, bereft of all but Drogon, lost her composure and ordered the imprisonment of Jaime Lannister as leverage for negotiations. The following morning, Daenerys rode towards King's Landing, demanding Cersei surrender or threatening total annihilation of the city. Cersei, imperiously positioned upon the ramparts with Ser Gregor beside her, held a disheveled Missandei, clearly subjected to torment. Cersei countered with her own demand for Daenerys' surrender, or else Missandei would be executed. Both sides remained steadfast, culminating in Ser Gregor carrying out Cersei's order to behead Missandei. Her final cry of Dracarys sent Daenerys spiraling into madness. Accompanied by a grief-stricken Grey Worm, she turned away, returning to Dragonstone to prepare for the final conflict. That night, Tyrion, utilizing his position as Hand of the Queen, dismissed the guards and met with the imprisoned Jaime, urging him to persuade Cersei to capitulate. They agreed that the tolling of a bell would signify King's Landing's willingness to surrender. After reaching an accord, Tyrion secretly freed Jaime and reported the development to Daenerys. In her fury, Daenerys disregarded the purpose of the negotiations, imprisoning Tyrion for his perceived betrayal. The following day, outside the city of King's Landing, the Golden Company, employed by Cersei, stood in a state of high alert. The massive crossbow launchers atop the walls were poised for action, the atmosphere thick with tension. Suddenly, Drogon descended from the skies, unleashing a fiery torrent that engulfed everything. The line of colossal crossbow launchers was swiftly decimated, the walls crumbled, and the once formidable commander of the Golden Company found himself only fleeing for his life. The soldiers, unaccustomed to the sight of dragons, suffered grievously under the searing flames. Seizing the moment, the Dothraki cavalry surged forward, slaying the commander and joining forces with the Northern Alliance and the Unsullied to storm into King's Landing. Cersei, standing by the window of the Red Keep, observed the unfolding chaos. The remaining forces in King's Landing had long since lost their will to fight. She realized the tide had turned against her. In the distance, a stooped figure made its way to the bell tower, preparing to toll the bell that signified surrender. As the bell tolled, Daenerys glared down at King's Landing, reflecting on the recent events. She could not accept surrender, for Cersei had inflicted deep wounds upon her, and the citizens of King's Landing had never embraced her as their own. In that moment, all she desired was to unleash her fury, channeling it through dragonfire to reduce the loathsome city to ashes. Overwhelmed by grief and rage, Daenerys urged Drogon to soar above King's Landing, adjusting their angle to initiate the assault. The terrifying flames obliterated the city, turning structures into mere decor as the inferno consumed it. In that moment, status held no significance. The buildings crumbled, and the throngs of people on the streets were rendered as insignificant as ants, their lives as fragile as weeds. Among them was Arya, who had long sought to slay Cersei in vengeance for her father and friends. She had set out early, determined to find Cersei, but was thwarted by the surging crowd, unable to reach the Red Keep. In a sudden turn, she witnessed a mother and daughter on the brink of being swept away by the throng, her heart desperate to help them. Yet with a devastating blast of dragonfire from Drogon, they were instantly reduced to ash. Arya stood frozen, turmoil surging within her. She was uncertain of which side she belonged to, questioning the righteousness of her actions. As the walls crumbled, a falling pillar struck Arya, plunging her into darkness. Chapter 3. Time reversed Arya. Arya, Sansa gently called to her slumbering sister, who had once been as wild as a spirited child. yet had now transformed into a great hero destined to save all of humanity. A sense of immeasurable pride radiated from Sansa's exquisite visage. Arya slowly opened her eyes, the joyous laughter and merriment of the hall echoing around her. It was unmistakably a jubilant celebration, devoid of any cries of despair. She gradually rose, gazing at her sister, and inquired, "Sansa, what brings you here?" Sansa chuckled softly, responding, "Arya, you were sleeping soundly. Yesterday, you single-handedly vanquished the Night King, saving us all. The celebration has yet to commence, and you've returned to your chambers, sleeping until now. I came to summon you to the festivities." Arya, taken aback, realized she was in King's Landing, where Daenerys was laying waste to the city. How had she suddenly found herself back in Winterfell? In disbelief, she made her way to the Great Hall, where Daenerys, seated at the head of the table, raised her goblet and proclaimed, "Let us toast to our hero, Arya Stark, the one who saved us. Arya is a hero. Arya is the pride of the North." The crowd erupted in cheers, showering her with accolades for her bravery. Then, Daenerys turned her attention to a figure nearby and asked, "What is your name?" "Jandrai, your grace," he replied. Daenerys continued, "Which house do you belong to?" "I am a bastard, raised in a flea bottom, your grace." Daenerys then remarked, "As far as I know, Winterfell currently has no lord. From this day forth, you shall be the Duke of Winterfell, Jandrai Baratheon. To our Lord Baratheon. To Lord Baratheon." The crowd roared once more, celebrating his deserved recognition. Daenerys had rewarded not only the hero who stood against the undead army, but also legitimized the bastard, granting him lands, which earned her newfound respect among the people. Observing the scene, Arya felt a flicker of understanding, silently departing toward Bran's chamber. At that moment, she believed only Bran could shed light on her confusion. Before she could knock, Bran called out, "Enter." "You knew I would come?" Arya asked, puzzled. "I did, though I am unsure of what you wish to discuss," Bran replied. "Bran, does your green side allow you to foresee the future?" Arya inquired. "Not precisely. I can clearly perceive events that have transpired and those unfolding. But my insight into what is to come is only vague," Bran explained. "Now, speak of your confusion." Arya collected her thoughts and recounted the events that transpired in King's Landing, how she had been struck unconscious, and upon awakening, found herself back in Winterfell. Noticing Bran's calm demeanor, she asked, "Do you not find this peculiar? Or perhaps I simply distrust this dragon queen too much and have conjured a dream. I find it unsurprising. Before my father's execution, I dreamt of his statue appearing in the crypt. When Euron led the Ironborn to invade Winterfell, I envisioned the sea engulfing the castle and the battle against the Night King. I knew Euron would die for me, and I was certain someone would vanquish the Night King, though I was uncertain if that someone would be you. I possess my own gifts. Perhaps you possess yours as well," Bran said calmly. "I recalled that shortly after my father's demise, I visited the Brotherhood Without Banners, where I encountered Melisandre. She spoke of the darkness she saw in my eyes, and countless eyes watching me, brown, green, and blue. They would all close because of me. And the Night King's army happened to have blue eyes." Arya suddenly interjected, "So, what do the brown and green eyes signify?" "In due time, you shall know." "But that time is not yet here," Bran replied. "Not yet here." Upon hearing this familiar phrase, Arya instantly thought of her dance instructor, Syrio Farrell, the master swordsman from Bravos. Without him, Arya would not be who she is today, as if everything had been preordained. Given this, I shall consider my experiences and dreams as harbingers of forthcoming events. This is a tragedy of the realm, and we must find a way to avert it," Arya declared. Bran regarded her thoughtfully and slowly responded, "To accomplish this, we require allies. You shall inform them one by one, and after the celebration feast concludes, come to me." "Who should I notify?" Arya inquired. "Your experiences will guide you in knowing whom to inform," Bran replied slowly. Arya paused, meticulously recalling, then departed from Bran's chamber, returning to the lively and vibrant hall of festivities. Chapter 4. The uncommon Lannister. Arya surveyed her surroundings, and in a corner, a familiar figure caught her eye. It was Sandor Clegane. Since her father's beheading by Joffrey, her life had been intertwined with this complex man, both noble and wicked. During their days of flight, they relied on each other, becoming each other's solace until Brienne's arrival shattered their fragile peace. Arya chose to leave Sandor during his near-death moment, taking with her his wealth. Now, having become a faceless man, she returned to Winterfell, reuniting with this man of turbulent fate. At that moment, a sweet maiden approached Sandor, offering him wine in an attempt to entice the valiant hero, only to be callously rebuffed. "Women of the North adore heroes," Arya remarked with a smile. "I am no hero, nor do I wish to meet my demise so soon," Sandor retorted. Yet you have become a hero of the North, a hero to all. Sandor chuckled. Cersei would disagree. She promised to fight alongside us, but has yet to mobilize a single soldier. She wishes to weaken us against the Night King. Perhaps even see us obliterated, so she may reap the benefits, Arya stated. The little girl has grown up, no longer so naive. Sandor laughed. What is the unfinished business that weighs on your heart? Arya asked. Sandor gestured towards the scar on his face, falling silent. Arya cast a meaningful glance at Sandor before striding towards Tyrion, who was not far off. Others may call you the imp, but I find you quite amusing, Arya remarked with a smile at the diminutive Tyrion before her. What others choose to call me is of no concern, as long as I possess sufficient strength. I shall laugh heartily and sincerely. Cheers, my hero. Tyrion raised his cup to Arya. After clinking their glasses, Arya took a sip of her wine, scrutinizing the little imp before her. Are you examining the scar on my face or admiring my handsome visage? Tyrion inquired with humor. Arya glanced around and gestured for Tyrion to step outside. Winter had arrived, the cold wind howling with flurries of snow. Once they reached the battlements, Arya gazed beyond the walls and said, My mother once said that no Lannister can be trusted. I wonder if my choice today is the right one? Not every Lannister possesses my height and charm. Tyrion replied earnestly. Do you believe in miracles? Arya asked. Tyrion sized her up and responded. I once doubted that dragons would return, but after slaying the father of the man who sought my demise and coveted the heart of my beloved, and then pledging myself to Daenerys, I came to believe in miracles and discovered my life's purpose. Soon, we shall follow the Dragon Queen to King's Landing. What do you think will transpire? Will your Dragon Queen emerge victorious, or will your sister Cersei continue her reign? Arya inquired. Our queen shall undoubtedly triumph. The entire North stands behind Daenerys, along with her 2 dragons. Victory is inevitable, Tyrion asserted confidently. Dragons can be slain. The Night King has already killed Viserion, Arya countered. Tyrion regarded Arya with keen interest, asking, Do you possess knowledge of something? I know many things, including events yet to unfold. Arya replied earnestly. Bran can see the past and present. Now you claim to know the future. When did House Stark become a prophetic family? Tyrion chuckled. It seems you do not believe. Very well, it appears no one can save your queen. Arya retorted. In the battle against the Night King, we would not succeed without Bran. I have unwavering faith in his abilities. As for what you mentioned, we might as well delve deeper into it. Perhaps I can offer you a profound analysis from my perspective, Tyrion suggested. When you learned Jon's true name is Aegon Targaryen, did you not feel any stirrings within? Arya asked. Tyrion fell silent. Upon discovering the existence of another Targaryen, particularly the Jon Snow he admired, he could not remain indifferent. Jon's unique leadership qualities and compassionate heart indicated that he would be a great king of Westeros. Daenerys' success may be attributed to her lineage and dragons. But Jon has earned his place entirely through his own merits, willing to sacrifice himself to do what is right at every step. In this dreamlike moment, Arya's inquiry plunged Tyrion into deep contemplation. He reminisced about the arduous path he had traversed, recalling the secrets shared with Sansa atop the walls of Winterfell. He vividly remembered the shock that enveloped him when Sansa revealed Jon's true identity, as well as his unwavering loyalty to Daenerys, who had rescued him in his darkest hour. Arya, I actually have a plan that I wish to discuss with Varys at an opportune moment. He exhaled deeply, articulating his thoughts. Arya's eyes glimmered with curiosity as she fixed her gaze upon Tyrion, seemingly attempting to peer into the depths of his soul. Perhaps I am indeed the most suitable person for this discussion, she asserted confidently. In this moment, I concur, Tyrion replied, to ensure the purity of House Targaryen's bloodline. The historical precedent of sibling marriages is not uncommon. If siblings can unite, then perhaps Jon and Daenerys could join forces to rule the continent of Westeros. Tyrion's gaze was resolute, as though he envisioned a glorious future ahead. However, Arya furrowed her brow, clearly harboring doubts about this proposal. Yet Jon has been raised in the North, where traditions reign supreme. Now that he knows Daenerys is his aunt, he would find such a notion utterly absurd. Indeed, that poses a dilemma, but how can we ascertain its viability without at least trying? Tyrion's eyes sparkled with determination. Arya regarded him intently before recounting her own tale. She narrated her extraordinary experiences, detailing the discussions between Tyrion and Varys, the betrayal and execution of Varys, the fall of Rhaego and Missandei, and Daenerys' wrath leading to the downfall of King's Landing. She vividly described witnessing an innocent mother and daughter reduced to ashes by dragonfire, her voice imbued with anguish and sorrow. Tyrion looked at Arya incredulously, struggling to fathom that this frail girl could articulate such unfathomable events. Is this the foresight of the Starks? He inquired. Arya shook her head. her eyes reflecting confusion. I cannot define whether it is foresight or something else, but it felt as though I had lived through it. I was struck unconscious by a falling pillar during Daenerys' assault, and when I awoke, everything had returned to this moment, she lamented, her voice heavy with pain. At that juncture, Tyrion fell into a profound silence, acutely aware of Cersei, Daenerys, and Varys' true natures. He realized that Arya's words were not mere fabrications. Cersei's treachery had been laid bare during the battle against the Night King, where she brazenly promised to join the fight, only to, as Sansa had predicted, send not a single soldier. Only Jaime, the knight unwilling to forsake his oath, ventured into the north to fight for the living. As Tyrion grappled with the revelation of Jon's true identity, he found himself ensnared in thought. On one hand, he understood why Sansa chose to share the secret with him. On the other hand, he was acutely aware of Varys' stance. Faced with the choice regarding his old friend who had once saved his life, how should he proceed? If Varys truly opposes his plans, would he genuinely resort to exposing him? And if exposed, what fate would await Varys? Tyrion wandered alone atop the walls, his inner turmoil rendering decision-making a daunting task. At last, he spoke, inquiring, "You must have consulted Bran. What did he say?" Arya replied resolutely, "Both Bran and I have resolved to endeavor to avert tragedy." Tyrion pressed further, "How shall we prevent it?" Arya explained, "Just the two of us, alongside Bran, is woefully insufficient. We require additional allies." A glimmer of inspiration sparked in Tyrion's eyes as he suggested, "Varys." Arya acknowledged, he could indeed be considered. "But we need more individuals." Tyrion swiftly enumerated a list: honest, selfless, trustworthy, and also Jon, Sam, Gendry, and Davos. With a smile, Arya remarked, "That makes 8. It seems promising, yet you appear to have overlooked one." Tyrion, perplexed, queried, "Are you referring to your sister Sansa?" Arya conceded. Tyrion hesitated. "Now that Jon is the king in the north, is Sansa still necessary?" Arya asserted, "However, Jon is not a Stark." Tyrion was rendered speechless, for he recognized the truth in her words. Arya swiftly assigned tasks. "We shall split up. I will inform Jon, Sansa, and Gendry, while you notify the others. We shall reconvene in Bran's chamber after nightfall." Observing Arya's decisive demeanor, Tyrion expressed his admiration. "Very well, Lady Stark, my hero." Chapter 5. The little girl has truly grown up. Upon their return to the banquet hall, most attendees were lost in the revelry of alcohol and music. At the head table, Daenerys and Missandei exchanged laughter, their cheeks flushed with joy. Gendry was surrounded by a throng, toasting him incessantly. Recently elevated to the title of Lord of Storm's End, he basked in newfound glory. Arya pushed through the crowd, softly admonishing him, "Do not indulge too much. There are important matters to attend to." Gendry instinctively embraced Arya, recalling the night they spent together before the final battle, a night cherished to avoid future regrets. Now, they had triumphed in the greatest war in Westeros, elevating themselves to noble ranks. Inspired by Arya's words, he began to envision a future managing Storm's End alongside her. Arya gently pushed him away and turned toward Sansa. She needed to confer with her sister, but first, she must circumvent Daenerys to avoid raising any suspicions. "Sansa, shall we toast the queen?" Arya proposed. Sansa silently rose, taking her cup, and departed her seat. Noticing this, Arya clasped her sister's hand tightly, and they walked together toward Daenerys. "Your Majesty, on behalf of the people of the North, we thank you for leading us to victory over the Night King, securing a great triumph for all the living," Arya declared boldly. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Sansa's eyes, but she quickly smiled, responding, "Indeed. Were it not for your Majesty's leadership, the Night King's army would likely have already spread throughout the north." Upon hearing these words, Daenerys rose and lifted her goblet, proclaiming, "Jon once said that all wars, save the one against the Night King, are mere child's play." He ventured forth, disregarding all for the sake of proving the existence of the Night King's army, even sacrificing his own chance of survival for the sake of others, only to miraculously return. This truly moved me. We must raise a toast to Jon. Jon, seated nearby, heard her words and approached with his own goblet, stating, "I was once a night's watchman. My actions were merely my duty. It is the Queen's wise leadership that has ultimately led us to victory. Let us toast to our Queen." This brief exchange illuminated the power of language. Daenerys felt a surge of joy within her heart, smiling as she took a sip from her cup, prompting others to join in and drink heartily. Everyone was in high spirits. After Daenerys concluded, she took her seat once more. "Your Majesty, I wish to step away for a while to pay my respects to Father in the crypt," Arya seized the opportunity to say. "That is only fitting. You 3 siblings should go together," Daenerys agreed. "Thank you, Your Majesty. We shall return shortly." Arya expressed her gratitude, taking Sansa and Jon by the hand as they made their way to the hall's grand entrance. Upon arriving at the crypt, they gazed upon their father's statue. And Arya lamented once more, "It lacks father's spirit. We should find someone who knew him well to carve it." "Arya, you are not merely here to see father's statue, are you?" Sansa inquired. Arya looked at her brother and sister and replied, "Indeed, that is not the sole purpose. I have already consulted Bran and Tyrion. There are matters of great importance that we must discuss together. Once the banquet concludes, let us gather in Bran's chamber. Remember, we must keep this confidential. No one can know." "What is it?" Sansa and Jon asked in unison. "This is not the time to linger. We should return, lest the queen grows suspicious," Arya stated. Turning to exit the crypt, Sansa and Jon exchanged glances, reluctantly departing the crypt. The three siblings returned to the banquet hall, and Arya deliberately passed by the head table, offering Daenerys a smile before approaching Gendry. She exerted effort to pull Gendry from the throng, seating him in a corner, whispering, "Do not indulge too heavily. After the banquet, we must go to Bran's room. It is of utmost importance." She then placed a gentle kiss on Gendry's cheek before departing the hall. Gendry was left bewildered, Arya's actions rendering him perplexed. Since their acquaintance, he had sensed that this young lady was distinctly different. Now, he found himself even more confounded. Yet, given Arya's serious tone, he understood the gravity of the matter. Thus, he resolved not to continue the revelry, opting instead to sit quietly, requesting a glass of red wine from a nearby serving maid. Compared to the earlier spirits, this red wine would help him maintain clarity. In the distance, Daenerys watched the young pair with a smile, instinctively glancing at Jon, who continued to avert his gaze. He could not come to terms with the feelings he harbored for his aunt, feelings that had even blossomed into a romantic affection. Upon uncovering the truth, his only recourse was to retreat. Jon's demeanor filled Daenerys with exasperation, prompting her to rise from her seat and retreat to her chambers, with Missandei closely following. "Your Majesty, have you truly resolved to depart at this moment? Perhaps this will disappoint many," Missandei remarked gently, a flicker of concern evident in her eyes. "I have long harbored a gloom within me. Now, the people have embraced me and finally regard me as their queen. I find no fault in choosing to leave at this moment. Let us return to our quarters and rest," Daenerys asserted with unwavering authority, her gaze radiating undeniable resolve. Missandei, sorrowfully lowering her head, silently followed Daenerys as they exited the still raucous banquet hall. At that moment, Tyrion was also notifying potential allies one by one. Chapter 6. The meeting in Winterfell in the late hours. Only a handful remained in the banquet hall, diligently clearing the remnants of the revelry. Arya surveyed her surroundings with keen vigilance, scrutinizing the vicinity of Daenerys' chambers, yet detected no anomalies. Subsequently, she proceeded to Bran's room, where they awaited the arrival of others. Soon, a knock echoed through the air. Arya opened the door to find Tyrion and Varys standing on the threshold. She welcomed them in, and then closed the door behind them. "Lady Stark, our heroine, I am honored by your trust," Varys declared. "I am somewhat aware of your endeavors. Bran has shared much with me, yet most importantly, it is Tyrion who has ardently recommended you." Arya replied with a smile. "Old friend, it appears we must continue to fight side by side," Varys remarked, casting a glance at Tyrion. Another knock resounded from outside. This time, Arya was more cautious, slightly ajar the door, and upon seeing Jon, Sam, Davos, and Gendry standing there, she opened it fully. About 10 minutes later, another knock echoed. Peering through the crack of the door, Arya saw it was Sansa and promptly let her in, then leaned out to glance around. "What is it? Do you suspect I would bring Daenerys with me?" Sansa laughed. "I doubt others would suspect you, my dear sister. But given the magnitude of this matter, it is prudent to exercise caution," Arya replied, also smiling. "Rest assured, I have stationed Brienne outside as a lookout. Moreover, I have not specified what we intend to discuss, only that the four of us siblings have matters to converse about without interruption. Brienne's loyalty is well known. So you need not worry," Sansa assured. "Lady Stark, you have grown so formidable that I scarcely recognize you," Tyrion sighed. He recalled the time he had rescued Sansa from the relentless humiliation inflicted by Joffrey and had asked her if she wished to expose Joffrey's atrocities. Yet, when she steadfastly claimed that Joffrey loved her and she loved him in return, Tyrion had lamented that perhaps this Stark girl could outlast them all. Now that such meticulous arrangements are in place, let us return to the matter at hand. "Bran, you may begin," Arya urged. "I am now merely the three-eyed raven. I do not possess your abilities." "It is better that you speak," Bran replied slowly. Arya glanced at Tyrion, who responded with a resolute gaze. Thus, Arya recounted her extraordinary experiences in great detail, including her subsequent conversations with Bran and Tyrion. Initially expecting disbelief, she found that only Jon, Sam, and Gendry wore expressions filled with questions, while the others remained composed, particularly Varys. Varys remarked, "The blood of House Targaryen is indeed inherently fraught with brutality." When I learned that Daenerys chose to respond to violence with violence in Meereen, I felt an unsettling apprehension. Upon her return to Dragonstone, she had 2 allies, only to have them utterly destroyed by Cersei's machinations. At that time, Daenerys disregarded all counsel, hastily attributing blame to Tyrion, and then took to the skies on her dragon, nearly obliterating the Lannister forces in Highgarden and executing those who refused to bend the knee, including Sam's father and brother. All of this indicates that when our queen's fury reaches a certain threshold, she is indeed capable of actions that surpass our expectations. I too am a Targaryen, and it is possible that one day I may commit acts of brutality, perhaps even slaughtering an entire city. Is that the sentiment you wish to convey? Jon erupted in anger at this. Calm down, Jon, Sansa interjected. You were raised in the North, under your father's guidance, and you have absorbed many righteous principles. Everyone has witnessed your deeds. Our current aim is to prevent tragedy from occurring. Sam approached Jon, gently patting his shoulder. I have previously told you that Daenerys is unfit to be queen. You should be the rightful king upon the Iron Throne. I still hold this belief. What we need to discuss is not who should occupy that cursed Iron Throne, but how to avert catastrophe. Davos stated firmly. According to Miss Stark, the catalyst for Daenerys' actions was Euron's ambush, which led to the death of Rhaegal, followed by Missandei's execution at Cersei's hands, correct? Indeed. Since Daenerys landed on Dragonstone, Cersei has repeatedly conspired against her. Based on Arya's experiences, she not only killed Rhaegal, but also executed Missandei, Daenerys' trusted handmaiden, cunningly using the citizens as shields to thwart Daenerys' advance. The conflict between them has escalated to a boiling point. Tyrion spoke with a tone of resignation. Daenerys possesses a fierce disposition. She will not stand idly by in the face of Cersei's provocations. Once she decides to retaliate with her dragons, she is undoubtedly capable of inflicting tremendous suffering upon King's Landing. Varys' eyes shimmered with concern. In Meereen, before you two became her advisors, her modus operandi was to respond to violence with violence. She executed numerous slave masters in one fell swoop. Later, the execution of a single slave incited a rebellion. Bran gazed deeply at Tyrion and Varys, his voice tinged with profound worry. I truly do not wish to support such a capricious queen, Sam muttered under his breath. Are we now required to choose a new king? But as a newly minted noble duke, do I possess the authority to do so? Gendry inquired, perplexed. Should we choose to support the new king now, Winterfell would inevitably become the first city to face annihilation, and Cersei may outlive us all, Sansa remarked with calm resolve. I concur. The assembly nodded in agreement, plunging the meeting into a stalemate. Once, I heard a tale of a warrior from the Riverlands named Oakleaf Green. In his youth, he was valiant and astute, earning countless accolades for his family through his remarkable courage and martial prowess. However, after a fateful hunt, he descended into brutality. Due to his heroic feats, he was sent to the Citadel for treatment, yet nearly all who witnessed his condition deemed it hopeless. At that juncture, a young scholar named Viserion Tarly meticulously studied Oakleaf's ailment, discerning that his madness stemmed from hallucinations experienced during the hunt. After poring over numerous texts, he eventually discovered a potion's recipe in an ancient diary, a concoction known as the Dream of Dawn, which, when administered judiciously, induces partial amnesia, primarily affecting memories not personally experienced. Bran glanced at Sam as he spoke, continuing, upon uncovering the potion's recipe, Viserion promptly set out to gather the necessary ingredients, concocting the elixir and administering it to Oakleaf. The potion proved effective, and soon Oakleaf returned to his former self. Viserion has always been my inspiration. I have heard my grandfather and many elders recount his story, yet my father disapproved of him, believing the Tarly family should achieve glory on the battlefield rather than in other realms. Our family's ethos is to excel in combat. Sam lamented. Nevertheless, you devoted yourself to your studies, risking the possibility of infection to cure Jorah Mormont of his grayscale, Bran pointed out. Truly, nothing escapes your notice, Sam replied awkwardly. Might we utilize the Dream of Dawn for our purposes? Gendry inquired. First and foremost, we cannot disrupt Daenerys' plans to assault King's Landing. None of us wish to face Drogon's wrath, Tyrion cautioned. Regardless of your strategies, one principle remains. Daenerys' life must not be endangered. That is my non-negotiable stance. Jon asserted gravely. If our efforts merely serve to jeopardize Daenerys' life in an attempt to avert tragedy, then our discussions today are rendered futile, Tyrion stated resolutely. Furthermore, we must devise a means to evade Euron Greyjoy's ambush. If Rhaego is not hunted, Missandei will not be captured. This is not insurmountable. Now that we are aware of impending events, we can adjust our plans to return to Dragonstone and completely evade danger. The current dilemma is how to persuade Daenerys to amend her strategy. Sansa queried. I will handle this. I have always felt a kinship with the Dragon Queen. Arya declared with determination. I agree. Both of you began as young girls, Varys remarked. Yet, this is merely the first step. Daenerys harbors little affection for Westeros. Should she triumph in this battle, she may yearn to conquer even more lands and liberate more souls. Should she emerge victorious in this battle, Daenerys would be poised to establish a second Meereen. However, she is ill-suited for the realm of Westeros, Varys remarked suddenly. Indeed, Daenerys' actions in Meereen have led her to believe that liberating all of humanity is her sacred mission. Yet, she is currently beset by the burdens of the Iron Throne, a weight she has carried since childhood, instilled with tales of the Targaryen dynasty's downfall and her own tragic past prior to her ascendance. The quest to reclaim the Iron Throne has become an inescapable burden for her. Nevertheless, the dream of Dawn may alter this predicament, Bran suggested. However, one thing remains clear. We must first address our common adversary, currently seated upon the Iron Throne, Queen Cersei. Her continued presence there would spell disaster for us all. Varys asserted. I concur, Sansa added. The Night King poses such a colossal threat, and in her eyes, he is merely a pawn in the struggle for power. There is nothing she would refrain from doing. Unless we topple her reign, the consequences will only worsen. Have we all become conspirators? Jon scoffed, a group conspiring against Daenerys, the very leader who guided us to victory over the Night King, while planning to have her assist us before we confront her. I do not deny my role as a schemer, but I remain loyal to the people, as long as I can ensure their safety and happiness. I care not who occupies the Iron Throne. If that is not the case, I shall exhaust every means to find a suitable replacement, even at the cost of my own life. Varys replied earnestly, gazing at Jon. Lord Stark, your father once inquired of me to whom my loyalty lay during his imprisonment, and I answered thus. I have always adhered to this principle. At present, it appears neither Cersei nor Daenerys exemplifies such virtue. You are more deserving than either of them. Agreed, the others echoed. Daenerys is my queen. I have sworn my allegiance to her. It is only because Arya witnessed the horrors she wrought that I consented to this. I must ensure her safety. As for the Iron Throne, I harbor no interest. The specifics of our plans do not concern me. I merely wish to safeguard her. Jon stated solemnly. My lords, ladies, or miss, forgive my imprecise wording. It is premature to declare who should sit upon the Iron Throne. We should continue our previous discussion on how to effect change while ensuring the safety of the Dragon Queen, Davos interjected. Arya, did you experience the recent events firsthand? Or were you able to perceive everything directly? Tyrion inquired. Upon awakening, I discovered that I could recall past events as if I had witnessed them firsthand, Arya replied. That simplifies matters. Now, focus on recalling the precise location where Daenerys was attacked, Tyrion instructed. Arya concentrated deeply and responded. It was in the waters between the Crab's Claw Peninsula and Dragonstone. That simplifies matters. First, Arya must earn Daenerys' unwavering trust, and then, at an opportune moment, remind her that when entering this area, she must fly at high altitude and remain vigilant to the movements of the sea. Ideally, they should seize the chance to counterattack, which would serve as a formidable deterrent to Cersei. Tyrion stated, secondly, Jon, I am aware that you initially did not intend to accompany the Queen on her dragon flight, but circumstances have changed. You must ride Rhaegal and accompany the Queen to Dragonstone. Should danger arise, you will be there to protect her. And if an opportunity for a counterattack presents itself, the two of you with 2 dragons could significantly enhance our victory. No problem. It is my mission, Jon replied. Lastly, once the main forces gather at Dragonstone, we will devise our next course of action based on the actual situation. What does everyone think? Tyrion inquired. Agreed. The group responded. As long as Cersei is alive, I have no desire to set foot in King's Landing for the rest of my life. I will remain in Winterfell as support for everyone, Sansa declared. I too shall temporarily stay in Winterfell. There is one very important matter. Tonight's plan must remain absolutely confidential. As it pertains to everyone's lives, Bran stated slowly. The group tacitly accepted this and then dispersed, leaving only Arya and Bran in the room. Chapter 7. The Queen's Kingsguard. Are you contemplating how to approach Daenerys? Bran inquired keenly. Ah, so you possess the ability to discern the thoughts of others, Arya replied playfully. It is not that my insight is exceptional, but rather that your expression has betrayed everything. Bran responded gently. If you think carefully about who the queen trusts most, perhaps you will discover a way to approach her. At this moment, there is also an important matter, the dream of dawn. Is the concoction complicated? Arya asked, curiosity flickering in her eyes. For an ordinary person, perhaps so. However, now that Jon has consented to our plan, everything will become significantly easier. This miraculous elixir requires 5 ingredients: milk, honey, forget-me-not, dragon grass, and dragon's bile. Forget-me-not is easy to find, and dragon grass can also be gathered on Dragonstone. But dragon's bile is more challenging. You will need to seek Jon's assistance, Bran replied with his characteristic calmness and wisdom. And what is the method of preparation? Arya pressed. Actually, it is not complex. First, mix the 5 ingredients thoroughly and place them in a sealed container. Then, heat it gently, maintaining a temperature between 40 and 50 degrees Celsius, and distill for 2 to 3 hours. The distilled liquid must be filtered and placed in an open container, then left to cool naturally in a shaded area for 2 to 3 hours until it solidifies. This step is crucial. It is imperative to ensure sufficient time for natural cooling, as this will yield a colorless and odorless result. Finally, remove the solidified liquid and cut it into uniformly small pieces, akin to the size of a fingernail. When using it, simply place 1 piece into red wine. Allow it to dissolve, and then consume, Bran explained methodically. After listening, Arya contemplated for a moment before departing from Bran's chamber. Perhaps due to the defeat of the Night King's army, the North welcomed a dawn unseen for many days. The golden sunlight intertwines with the shimmering reflections of the snow, resembling a melodious morning symphony, tranquil and melodious, awakening the long-slumbering earth. Within the courtyard of Winterfell, Grey Worm diligently trains the Unsullied, seemingly oblivious to his previous victories. Wholly committed to the responsibilities of the Unsullied Legion, Arya stands by the window, observing Grey Worm in the courtyard, when a spark of inspiration strikes her, prompting her to leave the room. She seeks out a handmaiden, whispers a few words, and then strolls toward the courtyard with her hands clasped behind her back. I hear you are the most formidable among the Unsullied? Arya inquires. Grey Worm, typically serious and reserved, cannot conceal his admiration for heroes. He humbly replies in halting English. Compared to your valiant exploits, my skills are trivial, Miss Stark. Northerners have always been audacious. I merely fought for a chance to survive, to rise from the brink of death. Arya chuckles. I wonder if I might learn a few techniques from you? No, Miss Stark. If I were to injure you, I could not justify it, Grey Worm insists firmly. The Night King could not harm me. Are you certain you can? Arya continues to smile as she poses her question. You two shall engage in a fair contest. I will serve as the judge, but it must be controlled. Whoever injures the other shall be deemed the loser, Daenerys announces. Descending from the upper floor, standing at the railing, smiling down at Arya and Grey Worm. She is not alone. Sansa, Tyrion, and others are also present. As you command. Your Majesty, Grey Worm responds. Very well, Your Grace. I shall be gentle, Arya remarks with a grin. Arya, be careful, Sansa cautions. Do not worry, sister. You know my abilities, Arya replies, slightly bending forward, tightly gripping her sewing needle, her posture as agile as a leopard, her gaze sharp and resolute, clearly prepared for battle. Grey Worm, towering over Arya, boasts well-defined muscles. He dons his helmet, revealing only his piercing eyes, which are cold and calm. With a spear in his right hand and a shield in his left, he stands ready, clearly not underestimating the young girl before him. An intense contest is about to unfold. Let the contest begin. With Daenerys' command, Grey Worm launches the first attack, his spear striking toward Arya like lightning. Arya, employing her agility, deftly evades the blow while lightly tapping Grey Worm's shield with her sword, testing his defenses. The two figures swiftly intertwine, their blades clashing with fervor. Seeing his initial strike thwarted, Grey Worm quickly alters his strategy, wielding his spear with the might of his strength and weaponry. However, Arya is not easily ensnared. She gracefully circles around Grey Worm, darting through the courtyard, twisting and leaping lightly at times, swiftly dodging, ensuring he cannot anticipate her movements while seeking the opportune moment to strike. After several exchanges, the light in Grey Worm's eyes resembles that of a beast. His spear dances through the air, each swing accompanied by a fierce rush of wind, a display of formidable power. Arya moved with the swiftness of lightning, her sword tip dancing like a dragon, striking with precision and ferocity, nearly grazing Grey Worm's arm on several occasions. Grey Worm, undeterred, employed his unique combination of techniques to deftly counter Arya's every attack. The contest escalated to a fevered intensity, his spear whirled like a tempest, each strike imbued with chilling precision and formidable force. He resembled a fearless lone wolf, at times lunging fiercely at Arya, and at other moments skillfully evading her strikes. Arya, in turn, wielded her sword with equal fervor, fearlessly parrying Grey Worm's onslaught. Their moves interlaced, each clash resonating with the harsh sound of metal upon metal. The rapid succession of blows, incisive thrusts, and agile dodges enveloped the arena in an exhilarating atmosphere of tension and excitement. The spectators were riveted, their cheers and applause echoing through the air. Suddenly, Arya's sword entwined with Grey Worm's spear, and she thrust toward his right wrist, seemingly intent on forcing him to relinquish his weapon. Yet Grey Worm would not so easily abandon his armament. He swiftly raised his left shield to deflect her strike, while simultaneously redirecting his spear for a counterattack. However, Arya's maneuver was merely a feint, designed to provoke a response. Having achieved her goal, she executed a forward roll, swiftly drawing a dagger from her belt, closing in on Grey Worm's back, and with astonishing speed, pressed the blade against his throat, determining the outcome in an instant. Indeed, her prowess was commendable. Our hero truly lived up to her reputation. Daenerys applauded while offering her praise. Sansa, Tyrion, and others joined in the applause, all recognizing Grey Worm as a formidable warrior, yet none anticipated Arya's swift victory over him. This is merely a one-on-one contest. In the chaos of battle, I may not always gain the upper hand, Arya remarked. Your Majesty, I wonder if I am worthy to serve as your guard. I once had 2 devoted protectors. The elderly Barristan Selmy traveled far to pledge his unwavering protection, only to meet his demise at the hands of the treacherous sons of the Harpy in the alleys of Meereen. Jorah Mormont, having been exiled for his past misdeeds, also risked his life to shield me. Had it not been for his valiant sacrifice in the recent battle, I might have perished at the hands of the undead army. As the impending war looms, I am heartened to have Miss Stark, our hero, willing to serve as my protector. If so, you shall become my Kingsguard. Though traditionally, the Kingsguard has been comprised of men, the Iron Throne itself has often been occupied by them. Isn't the Kingsguard reserved for knights? Arya chuckled. Daenerys approached Arya in the courtyard, taking the sword from her hand, and inquired, "Does this sword have a name? What is it called?" "Needle, Your Majesty. It is a weapon crafted specifically for me by Jon," Arya replied. "Indeed, a splendid name." Daenerys smiled, then turned serious. "Arya Stark, you have consistently demonstrated remarkable courage and loyalty. You have proven your worth on the battlefield and made immense contributions to the Seven Kingdoms. It is with great honor that I bestow upon you the title of Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, hoping that you will continue to strive for the peace and prosperity of our realm. As a knight, you shall bear the noble mission of protecting the vulnerable and upholding justice. Please accept this sword, a symbol of knightly honor, and let it become your lifelong faith and guardian. May you fight valiantly in the years to come, serving your country with unwavering loyalty, and become a paragon of the Knights of the Seven Kingdoms. Ser Arya, Ser Arya." The crowd echoed in unison. Arya took the sewing needle, tears welling in her eyes, recalling how her father had refrained from confiscating it to fulfill her wishes and even sought out Syrio Farrell to teach her the art of swordsmanship. At that moment, she truly became a knight. Though the experience felt somewhat surreal, the emotional turmoil within her was undeniably profound. "Ser Arya, I hereby appoint you as the Queen's Kingsguard, and from this moment forth, I require your presence by my side at all times," Daenerys proclaimed. "As you command, Your Majesty," Arya replied, glancing at Sansa, Tyrion, and the others, who exchanged knowing looks, aware that the plan was set in motion. Chapter 8. The Dance of Dragons in the Hall of Winterfell. Daenerys occupied the high seat while the newly appointed Kingsguard, Arya, stood protectively behind her, as all others took their respective positions. Tomorrow, the army shall embark towards Dragonstone, with the unsullied and Dothraki forces setting sail by sea. What will be the course of the Northern Army? Daenerys turned her gaze towards Tyrion, her voice imbued with anticipation. "Your Majesty, I am willing to accompany you. As for the Northern forces, I suggest that Gendry and Davos take unified command and march along the King's Road to King's Landing," Jon offered proactively. "As Prime Minister, what is your perspective?" Daenerys inquired, a faint smile gracing her lips before her demeanor shifted back to seriousness as she addressed Tyrion. "Your Majesty, this journey is of utmost importance. Jon's proposal is indeed most fitting. His presence alongside you is undoubtedly the safest choice. Moreover, I trust that Gendry and Davos will lead the Northern forces with distinction." Tyrion responded, "Your Majesty, the North has just endured a great battle, and now the army must travel to Dragonstone. I wish to remain in Winterfell to manage the aftermath and gather as much food and manpower as possible to serve as your reserve force. Do you find this feasible?" Sansa asked at an opportune moment. That is a most prudent decision, Lady Sansa. I must ask you to bear this burden, Daenerys answered with a smile, secretly relieved that Sansa would not accompany them. My physical condition is not suited for long journeys. This mission is for combat, and I wish to stay in Winterfell. Bran interjected. That is acceptable. However, once I conquer King's Landing and reclaim the Iron Throne, I hope you will come to my aid there, Daenerys stated. As you command, Your Majesty, Bran replied resolutely. Your Majesty, as your Kingsguard, I ought to be by your side at all times. However, as I lack the ability to ride a dragon, I have resolved to accompany the vanguard to the city of Riverrun. The strategic position of Riverrun greatly facilitates our offensive against King's Landing, and I am confident that Uncle Edmure will graciously open the gates to welcome us upon my arrival. Of course, prior to that, it is imperative that Your Majesty instruct the Maester to dispatch a letter to Riverrun, ensuring that Uncle Edmure is forewarned to make an informed decision, Arya suggested. With Riverrun under our control, we gain a vital stronghold, an excellent proposal indeed, Tyrion Lannister remarked. Arya's suggestion undoubtedly enhances their prospects of victory. Her intelligence and understanding of the North render her an indispensable asset in this campaign. Tyrion's wit and strategic insight also establish him as the Queen's most trusted advisor. There was unanimous agreement among the assembly. Very well, let us each prepare. We shall depart at dawn, Daenerys announced. After the gathering dispersed, Arya accompanied Daenerys back to her chamber, with Missandei closely following. Once inside, Daenerys seated herself by the hearth, and Missandei poured her a glass of red wine. Please, take a seat as well, Missandei, and pour 2 more glasses, Daenerys instructed. Your Majesty, I do not partake in wine, Missandei replied. Is it that you are unable to drink, or do you simply choose not to? Or perhaps you feel I pale in comparison to Tyrion? Daenerys teased. Your Majesty, you flatter me too greatly. I shall fetch it for you at once, Missandei said bashfully. A moment later, Missandei returned with 2 glasses of red wine, and Arya took one as the 3 women settled comfortably by the fire, savoring a sip. Sir Arya, with our journey commencing tomorrow, do you have any counsel? Daenerys inquired. Your Majesty, I happen to have a few suggestions, Arya replied, producing a map she had prepared in advance. Setting forth from Winterfell, the route poses no significant dangers, yet we must proceed with caution. For King's Landing lies far from here, and we cannot ascertain Cersei Lannister's maneuvers during this time. Her ambition is well known. It seems I underestimated you, Daenerys remarked. Urging her to continue, Arya pointed to the waters between the Crab Isle and Dragonstone on the map, saying, our naval forces must traverse this expanse en route to Dragonstone. It serves as an excellent ambush site, for Cersei's ally, Euron Greyjoy, is a cunning man. Should he learn of our forces passing through, he may very well lay a trap, catching us off guard. You possess considerable military acumen. It appears your talents as a Kingsguard may be somewhat underutilized, Daenerys remarked meaningfully. Your Majesty, one of the duties of the Kingsguard is to ensure your safety. Having chosen to serve you, I shall do all within my power to preemptively guard against any potential threats, Arya replied with solemnity. What strategies do you propose? Daenerys asked. Your greatest advantage lies in possessing 2 dragons. They can conduct aerial reconnaissance and obliterate any opposition, Arya responded. I understand, Daenerys declared, as we approach these waters. Jon and I shall scout ahead on Dragonback. And we must ascend high enough to remain undetected, Arya added. How can you be certain there are enemies? Daenerys inquired with curiosity. Better to be cautious. One must always anticipate a hypothetical foe, Arya replied with a smile. That makes sense. It seems I've gained not only an additional Kingsguard, but also a counselor, Daenerys chuckled in response. Rest early, Your Majesty. I shall remain outside the door, Arya said before exiting the chamber. Missandei, what is your opinion of Arya? Daenerys asked. Your Grace, she is remarkably astute. Her counsel is undoubtedly beneficial, bringing us no harm. Missandei replied cautiously. Very well, I shall heed her advice and prepare in advance, Daenerys declared, taking a sip of red wine before reclining in her chair, closing her eyes, and falling silent. The following morning, the sun continued to shine upon Winterfell, and the troops had assembled. Grey Worm led the Unsullied and Dothraki forces aboard their vessels in an orderly fashion, while Gendry and Davos prepared for departure along the King's Road towards Dragonstone. Daenerys rode atop Drogon, with Jon mounted on Rhaegal, as they soared through the winds, basking in the skies. The 2 majestic dragons glided through the air with astonishing speed, soon approaching the fingers of the sea. Jon, Arya warned us that the waters ahead might require reconnaissance. What are your thoughts? Daenerys asked. That is our advantage. And I believe it is entirely necessary, Jon responded. Then let us gain altitude and survey the situation, Daenerys concluded, patting Drogon's flank to signal him to ascend. Understanding the command, Drogon climbed higher, with Jon closely following on Regal. Suddenly, Daenerys spotted a cluster of dark shapes on the sea, likely a fleet of ships, prompting her to lower her altitude for a clearer view. At that moment, Euron, aboard one of the vessels, also caught sight of the dragons. A wicked grin spreading across his face as he readied a massive crossbow aimed at Drogon. With a swift whoosh, Euron loosed a colossal arrow, but due to the distance, its speed had considerably diminished. Drogon deftly maneuvered, evading the attack with ease. Jon, startled by the sudden turn of events, realized that Arya's warnings had come to fruition, and he quickly urged his dragon closer to Daenerys. Fury etched on her face. Daenerys was taken aback by Cersei's cunning ambush, clearly indicative of thorough preparations, including weapons specifically designed to counter dragons. She gently reassured Drogon to calm his agitation before assessing the situation below with a composed gaze, commanding Drogon to ascend further. She regrouped with Jon and stated, "Jon, there is an ambush at sea, equipped with weapons tailored for my dragons. We must proceed with caution. Let us climb higher and then dive down upon the fleet, launching a sudden assault. We must obliterate that fleet and demonstrate the true might of dragons." "Understood, Dany. Please be careful. We cannot afford to lose our queen," Jon shouted in response. Upon hearing Jon refer to her as Dany, a wave of emotion swept over her. She responded to Jon with a smile and then mounted Drogon, soaring high into the skies towards the fleet. Before long, they arrived above the armada. Daenerys called out, "Now is the moment. We shall dive." She commanded Drogon to descend swiftly, with Jon on Regal closely following. Euron sat at the seat of the crossbow, malevolently scanning the skies for the dragons, ready to unleash another ambush. Suddenly, two dragons swooped down from above at great speed. In a panic, he adjusted the crossbow, attempting to aim for an overhead shot, only to realize it was futile. He hastily abandoned the crossbow and leapt into the sea. At that moment, his fleet seemed like mere toys, shattered under the onslaught of dragonfire, cries of despair echoing through the air. The two dragons circled low, their flames engulfing the surrounding ships. They then hovered aloft, incessantly unleashing their searing breath upon any visible vessels or living souls. In an instant, the entire fleet was engulfed in flames. Jon's gaze was piercing as he focused intently on the water's surface. Prior to the assault, he had clearly seen Euron leap into the sea. Now, he was determined to find this cunning Ironborn and bring him to justice. Finally, a dark spot appeared on the water's surface not far away. Jon urged his dragon closer and confirmed it was indeed Euron. As he contemplated how to seize Euron, he was startled to see Drogon lunging towards him, jaws wide open. The detestable yet pitiable Euron was, in that fleeting moment, torn asunder by Drogon. Daenerys, perched upon Drogon's back, gazed furiously at the sea, her eyes fixed on Euron's lower half sinking into the depths. At that moment, a flicker of fear coursed through Jon. He had thought he understood Daenerys, yet now she seemed a stranger to him. After the battle, Daenerys directed Drogon towards Dragonstone, and after a moment's hesitation, Jon followed closely on Regal. In the war room of Dragonstone, Daenerys stood elegantly by the window, a glass of red wine in hand, her eyes sparkling as she gazed at the approaching fleet. Jon entered, observing the confident Daenerys, and could not help but inquire, "Your Majesty, why do we not capture Euron alive as leverage for negotiation?" Daenerys turned to him, her gaze deep and penetrating, and replied with a smile, "Do you believe we still require leverage? Even if it were necessary, it would not be right to execute him in such a manner," Jon stated bluntly. Daenerys' expression grew cold in an instant as she questioned, "Are you doubting me?" Then, continuing on her own, she remarked, "Euron is merely a cunning Ironborn. He previously defeated 2 of my allies through ambush. He has received his just deserts. I do not wish to discuss him further. The forces led by Grey Worm have begun to arrive. I need you to ascertain how much longer until the Northern Army arrives." Jon wished to say more, but upon meeting Daenerys' resolute gaze, he ultimately remained silent. He bowed slightly and said, "Very well, Your Majesty, I shall contact them immediately." With that, he departed from the war room. On the King's Road, the vanguard of the Northern Army advanced swiftly, with Arya and Sandor among them. Although they had initially planned to act independently, Arya's aim being Cersei, and Sandor's being his brother Gregor, Arya recalled that Sandor and her brother ultimately perished together. She did not fully disclose her plan to Sandor. Rather, she encouraged him to accompany her, not out of distrust, but because in such turbulent times, it was prudent to withhold certain truths. The following morning, the vanguard reached the bustling city of Riverrun, the domain of Arya's grandfather, Hoster Tully. The elder Hoster had passed away, and the de facto ruler of Riverrun was her uncle Edmure, who had miraculously survived the Red Wedding. During the War of the Five Kings, he had chosen to ally with Jaime Lannister to preserve his life, and now he held the title of Duke of Riverrun. The entire North had rallied to Daenerys' cause, and Edmure was not foolish. He understood that collaboration was the wisest choice, especially considering Daenerys possessed 2 dragons, making Riverrun her second stronghold after Dragonstone. At the city gates, upon seeing Arya and the Stark banners, Edmure exchanged a few pleasantries before opening the gates to welcome the vanguard into Riverrun. "Uncle, do you have any means to send me to Dragonstone?" Arya inquired of Edmure. "Are you planning to leave before the main force arrives?" Edmure replied, "The main force will not reach Riverrun for at least 3 days. I have urgent matters to attend to, namely finding Jon. Rest assured, my uncle. Gendry and Davos are currently leading the northern forces. They are both honorable men and will not trouble you," Arya candidly articulated, seeing through Edmure's hesitations. "It is possible to take a boat from Riverrun downriver to Dragonstone. If you set off now and your oarsmen are skilled, you could be enjoying lunch on Dragonstone by tomorrow," Edmure responded humorously, despite his thoughts being laid bare. "Then I would be grateful if you could arrange for a boat. Ideally with 2 competent oarsmen to accompany me, as I must reach Dragonstone swiftly," Arya stated. "Very well, I shall make the arrangements at once," Edmure replied. Soon after, 2 sturdy men accompanied Arya as they rowed downstream towards Dragonstone. By the next morning, they arrived at the Crabshore Peninsula. Arya suddenly recalled Bran's words, that the Crabshore Peninsula was merely a short distance from Dragonstone across the water. Perhaps she could find some valerian and dragon's grass, which would make her search for dragon's bile on Dragonstone considerably easier. She instructed the oarsmen to anchor the boat and ventured ashore in search of the materials. Valerian was easily found, but dragon's grass eluded her. Just as Arya was about to abandon her search and head to Dragonstone, she spotted a massive lizard coiled among the nearby bushes. Cautiously, Arya moved while keeping a vigilant eye on the giant lizard, fearful of startling it and inciting trouble. Snap! Fear often manifests in unexpected ways. Arya inadvertently stepped on a dry twig, the sharp crack disrupting the tranquility and startling the colossal lizard. It swiftly rose, moving towards the source of the sound, each step causing the ground to tremble. Arya, her expression tense, fixated on the massive creature before her. The dagger in her hand glimmered with a cold light under the sun, her body taut and poised for the imminent battle. The lizard, with its blood-red eyes, gradually advanced towards Arya. Suddenly, it opened its wide maw, a torrent of scalding saliva gushing forth. Arya adeptly evaded this deadly strike, only to find the lizard pursuing her relentlessly, its enormous tail sweeping through the air like a formidable weapon. With a leap, Arya narrowly dodged the tail, swiftly closing in on the lizard and driving her dagger fiercely towards its eye. The lizard roared in agony, yet Arya offered it no respite. Like a bolt of black lightning, she darted around the lizard, her dagger striking with lethal precision, rendering the creature vulnerable to her relentless assault. The ferocity of the lizard's counterattacks escalated as it swung its tail in an attempt to topple Arya. Nevertheless, Arya moved with the grace of a phantom in the forest, evading each attack with agility and finesse. The battle intensified, with the lizard's strikes growing ever more brutal. Arya's dagger left a trail of scars upon the lizard's hide, yet it appeared impervious to pain. Realizing she must uncover the creature's weakness to truly vanquish it, Arya finally spotted a small indentation on its back. She aimed for this vulnerability and thrust her dagger with all her might. The blade pierced through the lizard's skin, eliciting a horrific wail. In torment, the lizard thrashed, but Arya held firmly to her dagger, twisting it until the beast finally collapsed, defeated. Exhausted, Arya lay beside the lizard's lifeless body, aware that she had emerged victorious from this fierce confrontation. After resting for a brief moment, she rose to return to the shore, only to notice something glimmering in the sunlight where the lizard had once lingered. Approaching to investigate, she discovered the very dragon scale grass she had tirelessly sought. It was a revelation. Indeed, her efforts had not been in vain, and she was surprised to find that this humble plant had its guardian. With both the forget-me-not and dragon scale grass now secured, and with milk and honey being rather commonplace, she only needed to gather the dragon's spittle to concoct the dream of dawn. Soon, Arya returned to her vessel at the shore, continuing her journey towards Dragonstone. Chapter 10. The Dream of Dawn. As evening descended, Arya arrived at Dragonstone. Following a brief respite, she made her way directly to the war chamber, prepared to report the latest developments to Daenerys. "Your Majesty, the city of Riverrun has fully submitted to you," and the northern forces will arrive in River Run in 2 days," Arya reported, kneeling before Daenerys. "Lady Arya," Daenerys replied, "you possess not only foresight but also the prowess of a commander. Your previous counsel spared me from significant losses and allowed me to dismantle the forces of House Frey, thereby weakening Cersei's power. My affection for you is profound. I increasingly feel that assigning such a valiant individual as yourself to the Kingsguard is indeed a diminutive role for your talents." Daenerys smiled as she approached Arya, linking her arm with hers. "It is my honor to follow you, to overthrow the corrupt and oppressive regime, and to seek true freedom and happiness for the people," Arya replied with unwavering resolve. "You have worked tirelessly. Now, tell me how you wish to be rewarded," Daenerys said gently. "If possible, I would like to explore Dragonstone, the birthplace of your lineage and a testament to your family's glory," Arya expressed. "Certainly, go ahead. There should be little to attend to in the next couple of days, and you may take this opportunity to rest well," Daenerys agreed with a smile. Arya left the war chamber, eager to find Jon. She decided to return to her room, first to change out of the cumbersome Kingsguard armor and travel lightly. In the corridor, a door stood slightly ajar, and through the crack, Arya glimpsed Jon, who sat vacantly by the window, gazing into the distance as if lost in thought. Arya quietly pushed the door open and suddenly pressed the hilt of her sword against the back of Jon's neck. Being an experienced warrior, Jon instinctively leaned forward to evade, swiftly drawing Longclaw and turning around, only to find himself slightly exasperated upon seeing Arya. "Ah, Arya, you truly are a mischievous one," Jon chuckled. "Shall we have a little sparring match?" Arya provocatively suggested. "The space is too confined for such a contest. Perhaps another time," Jon replied. Yet, Arya was unwilling to relent. Wielding her sewing needle, she suddenly lunged at Jon. Jon had no choice but to engage, his swordsmanship honed from rigorous training since childhood, combined with countless battles during his time at the Wall, made him a formidable opponent. He deftly parried Arya's strike and, leveraging his strength and height, swiftly advanced, evidently intent on subduing Arya quickly to end this playful skirmish. However, Arya nimbly evaded each of Jon's attacks until a clever idea struck her. She feigned distraction, focusing intently on the tip of Jon's sword. Seizing the moment when Jon was unprepared, she ducked low to evade the blade and swiftly raised her sewing needle, launching an unexpected thrust toward Jon's waist. Jon instinctively bent to avoid the strike, but Arya had anticipated his move, and the needle accurately struck his back. "You've lost," Arya declared triumphantly, her eyes sparkling with the light of victory. "Where did you acquire such skills?" "You are becoming increasingly enigmatic," Jon laughed, ever intrigued by his sister. "From the dance instructor Father found for me, a faceless man from Bravos, among others," Arya replied, revealing no secrets to her brother. "Father would surely be pleased to know," Jon remarked. "To be precise, he should be referred to as your uncle," Arya corrected him. "When parting ways in Winterfell, my father once mentioned that during our next meeting, we would have an earnest conversation about my mother." Jon did not respond directly, murmuring to himself. "Jon, I have something to discuss with you," Arya stated. "Speak your mind," Jon replied. "I require your assistance with a material needed for the Dawn's Dream," Arya said. "Arya, I have been hesitant, pondering whether our initial decision was indeed the right one. I have been troubled by this ever since we set out for Dragonstone," Jon confessed. "And what of now?" Arya inquired. "Following your guidance, we ventured into perilous territory for reconnaissance and discovered Euron's plan for a surprise attack. Although the distance rendered Euron's ambush relatively harmless, it incited Daenerys' wrath, and together we obliterated Euron's fleet. Just as I was about to capture Euron, Daenerys executed him by dragonfire, mercilessly tearing him apart," Jon recounted, a tremor in his voice. "Euron has committed numerous atrocities. You needn't dwell on it too much," Arya comforted. "Yet I feel I no longer recognize Daenerys," Jon lamented. "Daenerys? Such a sweet name," Arya teased. "On a serious note, I now believe our original decision was justified, but can you assure me that Daenerys will remain unharmed?" Jon pressed. "I assure you," Arya replied. "Very well, tell me how I may assist you," Jon responded. "We are still missing one ingredient for the Dawn's Dream, dragon's bile, which only you can procure," Arya explained. "Dragon's bile? That is manageable. When do you require it?" Jon asked. "The sooner, the better," Arya urged. "Then I shall prepare to fetch the dragon's bile and deliver it to your chamber," Jon stated, rising to leave. Arya returned to her own quarters. Following Bran's instructions, Arya selected 2 open containers and 1 sealed vessel, placing them on the table in anticipation of the final ingredients' arrival. Shortly thereafter, Jon entered Arya's room, holding a cup filled with a viscous liquid that emitted a strong, fishy odor. Arya furrowed her brow and asked, "Is this truly dragon's bile?" "Indeed it is," Jon laughed. having become quite adept at acquiring dragon's bile with ease. Arya took the cup and, following Bran's guidance, crushed the forget-me-not and dragon scale herbs, mixing them into the dragon's bile along with milk and honey. After stirring thoroughly, she poured the concoction into the sealed container and proceeded to gently heat and distill it. I need to rest for a moment, John. Keep an eye on things. Call me in 3 hours. Remember, the timing must be precise, neither too long nor too short. Or else if it fails, you shall be the one to gather the materials next time, Arya instructed before collapsing onto her bed and drifting into slumber. John, resigned to his task, complied, placing an hourglass on the table and seating himself with a watchful gaze fixed upon the sands within. At last, the sand within the hourglass gradually trickled to an end. John roused the slumbering Arya, who, acting upon Bran's instructions, filtered the distilled liquid and poured it into a clean vessel, placing it upon a chair in the corner of the room to cool. As per our usual custom, John, wake me in 3 hours, Arya playfully remarked before burying her head back into the realm of dreams. With a resigned sigh, John flipped the empty hourglass back onto the table, once more embarking on the monotonous vigil of watching sand fall. Eventually, the hourglass completed its final descent of sand, prompting John to awaken Arya once more. Arya gazed at the congealed, transparent substance in the bowl, her brow furrowed in perplexity. Is this the wondrous dream of dawn? Is this how it is made? We must trust Bran. His knowledge far surpasses what you and I can fathom, John replied wearily. That makes sense, Arya concurred. Retrieving the now solidified dream of dawn and slicing it into uniform pieces the size of fingernails with a dagger, wrapping them in a clean cloth. Task accomplished. I shall return to my slumber, Arya declared, then reclined back onto her bed. John cast a glance at her, shaking his head in resignation as he exited the room. Unbeknownst to them, 3 days had slipped by. Chapter 11. Let us become dragons. Dragonstone rose majestically from the cerulean waters, appearing as a solitary behemoth in the soft glow of dawn. The gentle waves caressed the coastline as the morning sunlight pierced through the clouds, shimmering upon the sea's surface like the delicate touch of divinity upon the earth. The island's castle stood tall and solemn, its ancient stone walls adorned with creeping vines, reminiscent of a benevolent elder bearing witness to the passage of time. Inside, the hearth radiated warmth, simmering fine wines and delectable seafood, the fragrance enveloping the air in a tantalizing embrace. Within the war chamber, Daenerys occupied the central seat, flanked by Tyrion, Jon, Varys, Yora, Davos, and Edmure. Arya, Grey Worm, and Missandei stood behind their queen, as a conference on the strategy to assault King's Landing was about to commence. Daenerys exuded vitality and high spirits, casting an expectant gaze toward Tyrion, resembling a queen of both wisdom and valor, and inquired, "My esteemed hand, with our forces now ample and Cersei's naval power vanquished, is the defense of King's Landing not to be feared?" Without hesitation, Tyrion responded, "Indeed, your grace. Capturing King's Landing at this juncture should be as effortless as plucking fruit from a tree. However, based on my understanding of Cersei, it may not prove so simple." Varys interjected, "Yes, your grace, you are the breaker of chains, the mother of dragons, held in high esteem, and you are also deeply compassionate towards your people. Cersei will likely seek to exploit this." Daenerys' expression turned grave as she replied, "I do not fully grasp your meaning. Please elaborate." Varys spoke earnestly. "My little bird has conveyed news that the capital, King's Landing, is behaving unusually, having opened its gates to allow a multitude of refugees to enter, a scenario that would have been inconceivable before. I surmise that Cersei intends to use the populace as a shield, attempting to diminish the power of your dragons. For you possess a compassionate heart and would not turn a blind eye to the plight of the common folk, while Cersei would not hesitate to do so." A flicker of cold resolve flashed in Daenerys' eyes as she replied, "Since the people willingly enter the city to serve as Cersei's shield, why should I dwell on my considerations? Previously, Lady Olenna urged me to act decisively, yet my overthinking and hesitation culminated in the near-total annihilation of Highgarden. I shall not repeat that mistake." Her words left the assembly in stunned silence, exchanging glances of astonishment. Tyrion cautiously inquired, "What is your plan, your grace?" Daenerys responded without hesitation, "It is quite simple. I will negotiate with Cersei. Should she agree to surrender and relinquish King's Landing, I may consider sparing her life. Otherwise, I shall incinerate this wicked city with my dragons. King's Landing is an ancient city, a testament to history and a vessel of culture. To destroy such a venerable place is akin to erasing a chapter of our past, obliterating the cultural legacy and the life stories of those who once inhabited it." Tyrion, with a serious demeanor, articulated, "Currently, thousands of refugees continue to pour in. If we were to unleash the dragons, how many innocent lives would be lost? This does not align with your principles. You seek to liberate those who suffer, not treat innocent lives as mere collateral. We must not hastily destroy an ancient city. We ought to respect and protect it, allowing it to endure so that future generations may comprehend our history and culture. This is our responsibility to the past and to our heritage. Daenerys fell silent for a moment, contemplating. You are indeed quite talented, my Lord Hand. However, your prior advice led us to ambush an empty Casterly Rock, while the Lannister army decimated my allies when I was powerless to intervene. I still sense a degree of underestimation towards Cersei on your part, perhaps driven by your desire to protect your family. Arya leaned in closer to Daenerys and whispered, Your Grace, Tyrion is loyal to you. He considers your long-term interests. Achieving victory through the destruction of King's Landing may seem the simplest and swiftest route. Yet it would instill fear and potentially tarnish your reputation. This would be a Pyrrhic victory. We must think carefully and strategically. Upon hearing this, Daenerys regained some composure, her gaze shifting to Arya, reflecting deep trust. Arya's recent conduct had solidified her confidence in this exceptional protector. Nevertheless, the words of my hand also ring true. A victory through dragonfire would be overly simplistic and brutal. We ought to devise a more challenging strategy, Daenerys mused with a smile. Upon hearing this, the assembly breathed a collective sigh of relief. In that case, my Lord Hand, do you have any valuable suggestions? Daenerys inquired once more. Indeed, Your Majesty. Cersei currently possesses the Golden Company and a portion of the Lannister forces. Although their combat capabilities are rather mediocre, it remains imperative to minimize casualties, Tyrion articulated with composure. First, we should dispatch a missive to Cersei to arrange a time for negotiations. Should she recognize the gravity of the situation and surrender King's Landing, that would be ideal. However, if she persists in her defiance, I must trouble Your Majesty to unleash your dragon upon her existing fortifications and the defensive troops outside the city. There are numerous ballistae on the walls specifically designed to combat your dragons, and I trust you are now well versed in their destruction. We can then press her to surrender once more, encircle the city, and cut off all supplies to King's Landing. It will not take long. Even if Cersei is reluctant to capitulate, the citizens within the city will compel her to do so. I possess little patience for prolonged negotiations. I am willing to engage in discussions once, but should Cersei refuse to surrender, I will directly obliterate all her military might. As for the city and its populace, I shall endeavor to ensure minimal casualties. That shall be the course of action, Prime Minister. Please arrange the time for negotiations, Daenerys concluded, rising to depart the war room. Arya stood to follow Daenerys, seizing the opportunity as Tyrion discreetly slipped a note into her hand. After receiving the note, Arya swiftly matched the queen's pace. Upon reaching the chamber, Daenerys entered, while Arya remained quietly at the threshold. Moments later, noticing the queen had not summoned her, Arya opened the note, which simply read Midnight Meeting. After reading, she quickly tucked the note into her pocket and resumed her duties. Before long, Missandei arrived at the door, glanced at Arya, and then entered the queen's chamber, restoring the previous tranquility of the surroundings. Until late into the night, Daenerys did not call for Arya. As Arya pondered how to rendezvous with Tyrion, she suddenly heard a faint rustling around the corridor's corner. She approached cautiously, discovering it was Tyrion, who was huddled against the wall, gesturing for her to remain silent before stepping outside. Upon reaching the threshold, Tyrion stated, Arya, I shall be succinct. The queen's demeanor today has been noted by all. Varys and I believe Cersei will undoubtedly refuse to surrender. So you must find a way to ensure the queen's negotiations fail, allowing us to destroy the city's defenses and the troops outside. Afterward, we must execute our plan, lest we find ourselves reliving past tragedies. Very well, I shall do my utmost. I must return now. I cannot be away for too long. Arya replied before retracing her steps. Chapter 12. The dawn before the storm. The morning sun ascended the horizon, its warm rays illuminating the entirety of Dragonstone. In the distance, 3 majestic peaks stood as one of the island's landmarks. At the center of the isle lay a grand castle, encircled by imposing walls adorned with numerous sharp spikes. Surrounding the fortress were expansive gardens and woodlands, flourishing with an array of exotic plants and flowers. Daenerys gently pushed open her chamber door, stepping out contemplatively, with Arya and Missandei closely following. The trio arrived at the edge of a cliff, where Daenerys gazed out at the boundless sea, as if contemplating her future. Suddenly, a deep, labored breath echoed from behind. It was Drogon and Rhaegal, gradually approaching the trio. Daenerys wore a motherly smile as she climbed onto Drogon's back, who promptly soared into the sky, with Rhaegal close behind. The two dragons circled Dragonstone, while Daenerys gazed down from the heights, taking in the breathtaking beauty of the island. Eventually, Drogon landed steadily on a high hill, and Daenerys dismounted, her face aglow with joy as she walked towards Arya and Missandei, her eyes brimming with fulfillment and anticipation for the future. Westeros truly is a beautiful realm, she mused, with distinct landscapes in every direction, ancient architecture, and rich cultural heritage. Arya, gazing into the distance, replied, "Indeed. When I was 10 years old, I accompanied my father to King's Landing for the first time, filled with hopeful dreams. It was here that I learned swordsmanship under the renowned Braavosi swordsman, Syrio Farrell. However, my good fortune was short-lived. My master, Syrio, was slain by the Lannisters while protecting me. I witnessed my father, tormented, being forced to publicly confess to treason beneath the statue of the High Septon, only for Joffrey to go back on his word and order his execution. From that day forth, King's Landing has been a source of painful memories for me." Upon hearing Arya's words, Daenerys expressed her regret. "I am sorry to have reminded you of such sorrowful times. Rest assured, I shall dismantle the Lannister regime and make Cersei pay dearly." Arya looked at Daenerys with a serious expression and said, "Your Majesty, you are an exceptional leader, and I am honored to be your sworn sword. I am grateful that you are willing to seek vengeance on my behalf." Noticing Arya's demeanor, Daenerys inquired, "Is there a but in your thoughts?" Arya responded, "As the future queen of Westeros, you embody absolute power and status. Should you act impulsively due to personal grievances, it could incite unnecessary discord and diminish your authority and influence. This is why I believe Tyrion is loyal. He considers these matters from a long-term perspective. So, you do not support my plan to destroy King's Landing?" Daenerys said coldly, her earlier elation fading. "Indeed, it is not advisable unless absolutely necessary," Arya replied. "Very well. What should I do next?" Daenerys asked, her tone still frosty. After a moment of contemplation, Arya suggested, "Set a time for negotiations with Cersei. To prevent any treachery, refrain from deploying the dragons for now. If the talks fail, use the dragons to launch a surprise attack, dismantling King's defenses and surrounding the city to force Cersei's surrender. Should she still refuse to yield after 3 days, you may proceed with your original plan. This way, even if King's Landing is ultimately destroyed, you will have a justifiable reason." Upon hearing this, Daenerys felt a sense of comfort return, stating, 3 days is not too long. Since you are insistent upon this course of action, I shall heed your counsel. Now, I wish to remain here for a while. You may take your leave." "At your command, Your Majesty," Arya replied. Subsequently, Arya and Missandei returned to the castle. Arya made her way to the war room, where Tyrion was expected to be present. Indeed, not only Tyrion, but Jon and Varys were also gathered in the war chamber. "It is fortuitous that you are all here, my esteemed Prime Minister. The Queen has consented. Should negotiations falter, she will initially dismantle the city defenses and the stationed troops outside, then besiege the city for 3 days. If Cersei does not surrender after 3 days, she will obliterate King's Landing," Arya declared. 3 days seems insufficient," Jon murmured. "That is ample time, Jon. As you have observed, the Queen's temperament is not particularly forgiving. 3 days will suffice for our plans to unfold," Arya asserted. Jon suddenly grasped that the decision made by the people of Winterfell was not without justification. "My Lord Prime Minister, Her Majesty requests that you promptly arrange a time for negotiations." "What is your strategy?" Arya inquired. "I shall seek out Jaime at once. He is likely our quickest solution," Tyrion replied. "Are you intending to bring him back to King's Landing?" Arya asked. At this juncture, keeping him seemed to hold little significance. Tyrion responded, "Indeed. Nonetheless, this matter must remain clandestine. It would be prudent for you to also consult Davos. He is an expert in smuggling and could greatly facilitate your endeavors," Varys suggested. "That is sound advice," Tyrion proclaimed, and then departed the war room. That night, Tyrion and Davos collaborated, consolidating their respective networks to escort Jaime into King's Landing. Jaime, at this moment, sought only the opportunity for both himself and Cersei to escape unscathed, showing no interest in the power struggles of King's Landing or the realm of Westeros. He hastened to the Red Keep and found Cersei. "Cersei," Jaime called out, his voice choked with emotion as he beheld his beloved sister. Upon hearing that familiar yet distant voice, Cersei turned to face Jaime. Like a helpless child, she rushed towards him and embraced him tightly. They were born as twins, inherently connected in spirit. In that moment, Cersei, feeling utterly vulnerable, seemed to grasp onto a lifeline. "Cersei, surrender. Living is the paramount choice," Jaime spoke gently. At that moment, Cersei remained resolute in her competitive spirit, fully aware that if she were to capitulate now, the consequence would be utter annihilation or an even more brutal fate. Even if I surrender now, is there a chance for survival? Perhaps there remains a glimmer of hope in fighting back. After all, dragons are not invincible. Did not the Night King slay one? Cersei stated seriously. Tyrion will fight for our chance to survive, Jaime replied. He is a devil. Without him, our mother would not have died in childbirth. Our father would still be alive, and we would not have descended to our current plight. Cersei spoke with deep animosity towards Tyrion. Yet he is also a Lannister, our own brother, Jaime countered. He has brought only calamity upon the Lannisters. Cersei retorted coldly. Cersei, do not behave this way. We must cast aside all biases. Tyrion is our dear brother, a Lannister. A truth that our father emphasized during his lifetime and is an immutable fact, Jaime asserted. Observing Jaime's demeanor, Cersei realized that her brother had transformed into someone who no longer blindly supported her. Yet, she was at a loss on how to sway him. Cersei, Daenerys has requested negotiations. What are your thoughts? Jaime pressed further. Let us proceed with negotiations. I shall arrange all defensive matters. Should she dare to showcase her dragons, I will demonstrate with my special weapon that dragons can indeed be slain. Cersei proclaimed with unwavering confidence. Yara's ambush has already been anticipated by Daenerys. Do you wish to attempt another surprise attack? Jaime inquired. Yara's fleet is inconsequential. It pales in comparison to the defenses of King's Landing and signifies little, Cersei retorted. If the Dragon Queen wishes to negotiate, then let us negotiate. However, no one shall dictate my actions. I am the rightful queen of Westeros. When shall the negotiations commence? Jaime asked, exasperated by Cersei's obstinacy. It is still early. I suspect you are merely a messenger at present, so I shall require you to make another journey. The negotiations can be set for tomorrow at noon, right at the main gates of King's Landing. Cersei replied coldly. As you command, Your Majesty, Jaime responded. Then departed from King's Landing, returning to Dragonstone to relay the news to Tyrion. Chapter 13. The plan commences in King's Landing, this grand fortress. The atmosphere was tense yet solemn. Daenerys, the valiant queen, adorned in resplendent battle attire, stood resolutely beneath the castle walls, exuding an air of indomitable strength. Her piercing gaze reflected unwavering determination and boundless wisdom. Behind her, the Unsullied, the Dothraki, and the northern armies lent her immeasurable power. Cersei, the reigning ruler of the realm, donned a regal purple robe and a crown adorned with jewels, poised elegantly upon the castle walls, her demeanor graceful and her presence noble. A serious expression graced her face, her eyes glimmering with arrogance and vigilance. The standoff between the two queens was akin to the oppressive stillness before a storm. Daenerys spoke first, her tone imbued with undeniable confidence. Cersei, you have usurped the Iron Throne, harming the peace and prosperity of the realm. Now, I, Daenerys Targaryen, the rightful heir to the Iron Throne, demand that you unconditionally relinquish power, surrender the Iron Throne, and pay for your transgressions. Cersei retorted without hesitation, Daenerys, you may have the right to ascend the Iron Throne, but do not forget that the kingdom requires a strong ruler. Under my leadership, the realm has flourished, and the people thrive. What can you, a distant dragon mother, offer them? Daenerys countered sharply, Cersei, I bring not only the glory of the dragon mother, but also a deep compassion for the people. Your rule is built upon deceit and bloodshed, whereas I shall deliver peace and justice. The Iron Throne belongs to those who truly care for the welfare of the nation. Cersei scoffed, Daenerys, do not be so naive. The struggle for power is ruthless and merciless. Why should I relinquish the authority I have painstakingly acquired? I possess legitimate claims as well. Why should I submit to you? Do not presume that your title as the Mother of Dragons grants you an easy victory over me. I shall never yield. As negotiations reached an impasse, both queens hardened their stances, unwilling to compromise in this contest for the Iron Throne. Ultimately, the discussions collapsed, and the acrid scent of impending war hung heavy in the air. Daenerys slowly turned, her gaze resolute and fierce, signaling her companions to withdraw. Within the war room on Dragonstone, Daenerys, Arya, Tyrion, Jon, and others gathered around the map, their expressions grave. The shadow of failed negotiations loomed over them, and the tension of war enveloped the atmosphere. Daenerys, with unwavering determination, declared, at dawn tomorrow, I shall ride my dragon to obliterate the defenses of King's Landing and the troops outside its walls. I trust the Prime Minister will take great care in the siege preparations. It is my duty, Your Majesty, Tyrion replied. Your Grace, please allow me to accompany you. Jon interjected. At his words, Daenerys felt the warmth of Jon's concern once more and replied, That would be splendid. We shall set forth at dawn. The night passed in silence. On the morrow, the sky was shrouded in ominous clouds, heralding an approaching storm. Daenerys mounted Drogon, her armored resolve radiating power, while Jon rode regal closely behind. Having learned from the previous ambush by Euron, the two directed their dragons to soar high above Dragonstone. Evading the range of the enormous crossbows, they soon arrived above the very gates where negotiations had collapsed the day prior, and with a swift command, they sent their dragons diving downward. The guards atop the walls, blissfully unaware of the impending disaster, were engaged in casual conversation. Suddenly, with a deafening roar, two streams of dragonfire surged forth, annihilating the line of catapults. The soldiers nearby, caught unprepared, were engulfed in flames, their cries echoing in despair. The onslaught from the dragons continued unabated, as sections of the walls crumbled and collapsed. The Golden Company outside King's Landing, witnessing the destruction, fell into panic and scattered in disarray. With piercing eyes, Daenerys directed Drogon to sweep through the disintegrating enemy ranks, while Jon followed closely on Rhaegal, their combined assault relentless and devastating. Ultimately, under the might of dragonfire, the city's defenses were utterly obliterated, and the station troops disbanded in chaos. Following this, Grey Worm led the Unsullied and Dothraki forces, while Gendry and Davos commanded the Northern Army, encircling King's Landing from all sides. Inside the city, Cersei's heart ached with anguish. Yet she remained resolute and refused to surrender. Daenerys and Jon returned to Dragonstone on their dragons. In the war room, Arya, Tyrion, Varys, and Missandei awaited Daenerys' return. 3 days from now, if Cersei refuses to capitulate, I shall employ the same method to bring about her destruction, even if it means razing King's Landing to the ground. As Daenerys entered the war chamber, she vehemently proclaimed that the war and dragonfire might indeed drive her to madness. A profound silence enveloped the room, akin to the stillness of a grave. Your Majesty, please take the next 3 days to rest. I believe Cersei is not so foolish, Arya suggested. I hope so. Now, everyone may leave, except for you, Arya, Daenerys commanded. As you wish, Your Majesty, the others replied, and all but Arya departed the war chamber. Allow me to pour you a glass of red wine, Your Majesty, Arya offered. Daenerys acquiesced, turning her gaze toward the vast sea beyond the window. Arya approached the cabinet along the wall, discreetly retrieving a small piece of Dawn's dream she had on her person. She filled 2 glasses with red wine and dropped the fragment into one, gently swirling the mixture. Your Majesty, the might of the dragons is truly extraordinary. Obliterating fortifications and the stationed troops outside occurs in the blink of an eye. From your departure to your return, it has been less than an hour. Cersei must be shaken. Perhaps the defenses were her confidence in yesterday's negotiations, and now she is contemplating how to preserve herself, Arya remarked with a smile. Do you genuinely believe that? Daenerys inquired, her eyes still fixed on the endless expanse of the sea, seemingly lost in thought. Absolutely. Your wisdom and majesty are enough to instill fear in her heart, Arya replied, noticing that the fragment had completely dissolved. She approached Daenerys, offering her the glass infused with Dawn's dream. Daenerys accepted the wine and took a sip, oblivious to any anomaly. Observing her reaction, Arya raised her glass, saying, In 3 days, you shall reclaim the Iron Throne, and you will become the Queen of the 7 Kingdoms. Cheers, Your Majesty, to your imminent victory. Daenerys smiled slightly, clinking her glass with Arya's before downing the contents in one gulp. My brother has long fantasized about reclaiming the Iron Throne since my earliest memories. Yet he never grasped what it truly meant to be a ruler. Now, victory is within reach, yet it feels so unreal, Daenerys lamented. Your Majesty, perhaps you have simply exhausted yourself. Allow me to escort you back to your chamber for some rest, Arya suggested, nodding in agreement. Daenerys rose and made her way toward her room, with Arya following closely. Outside, Missandei, having observed the scene, trailed behind them. Upon entering the room, Missandei tenderly assisted Daenerys in loosening her garments. Daenerys, perhaps truly fatigued, lay down and fell asleep shortly thereafter, while Missandei stood quietly by her side. And Arya waited just outside the door. Chapter 14. The Strange Queen. Daenerys, please don't leave. Without you, Meereen will soon fall. Daenerys, without you, I am losing the courage to live. Dany, Dario, Dany. Daenerys suddenly awoke in the midst of midnight. Missandei, having observed the queen in a deep slumber, had long since returned to her own quarters. Daenerys gazed at the empty room, her thoughts lingering on the haunting call of Daario Naharis echoing in her dreams. And tears welled in her eyes. Although Jon had once bestowed upon her a memorable love, his reluctance to draw near her after the revelation of his true identity left her feeling isolated. He would occasionally offer warmth, but Daario's devotion was unwavering. In this moment, under the influence of the dream of dawn, her longing for Daario intensified. Arya, hearing the stirrings within the chamber, softly inquired, "Your Majesty, is something amiss?" "Nothing at all." "Arya, please come in," Daenerys replied. As Arya entered and noticed the tear-streaked face of Daenerys, she refrained from probing further and approached the wine cabinet. Pouring a glass of red wine, which she handed to the queen. "Arya, I find myself suddenly yearning for someone, a person who once risked his life for me, who willingly sacrificed everything for my sake. Yet, when I resolved to reclaim the Iron Throne, an inheritance my brother had always claimed was rightfully ours, I callously left him to govern Meereen. Now, I feel an overwhelming longing for him, a dread that he may be in peril. The Iron Throne seems less significant compared to my desire to immediately return to Meereen and find him. I do not even understand my own emotions," Daenerys confessed, tears brimming in her eyes. Upon hearing this, Arya felt a pang of confusion. Strange. I recall Bran mentioning that the dream of dawn would cause one to forget matters not directly experienced. Yet, it seems that is not the case. Daenerys has not forgotten her past, but rather deepened her perception and emotions regarding her experiences, while neglecting certain events she did not witness. Could it be that Bran was mistaken? Arya inquired. "Your Majesty, who is this person you speak of?" Thus, Daenerys recounted her acquaintance with Daario and the sacrifices he made for her. Speaking fervently to Arya, a sweet smile graced her lips as she reminisced, as if transported back to her youthful days filled with dreams of love. "There is another person I miss dearly at this moment, but I shall never see him again," Daenerys murmured. "You mean Yora," Arya surmised. "Indeed, Yora was exiled by me. Yet he defied all odds to atone for his past mistakes, solely to return to my side. Ultimately, he perished in the battle against the Night King while protecting me." Daenerys lamented, her heart heavy with sorrow. "And do you have any new plans now?" Arya asked tentatively. "I am uncertain. One thing I know for certain is that Daario is across the ocean. I could see him if I return. But Yora, I shall never see again, only silently cherish his memory. By the way, I had a dream just now, in which Daario told me he was losing the will to live without me. I cannot shake the feeling that something has happened in Meereen, that Daario may be in danger. Arya, what do you think I should do?" Daenerys said anxiously. Arya discovered that the queen was entirely transformed in this moment. She decided to provoke her further to observe her reaction, and thus she said, "Your Majesty, King's Landing is on the brink of being breached. You are about to become the legitimate queen of the 7 kingdoms of Westeros. Once the war concludes, you may do as you wish. I have completely lost Yura, and if I were to lose Daario as well, I would utterly collapse. King's Landing holds no memories or emotions for me. The Iron Throne is devoid of significance at this juncture. Westeros has not been kind to me. I only wish to return to Meereen immediately to see Daario," Daenerys replied. Upon witnessing her distress, Arya gently advised, "Your Majesty, it is the dead of night. You should rest and decide in the morning." "I cannot wait any longer, Arya. Summon Grey Worm and Missandei to see me immediately," Daenerys commanded. "Only those two?" Arya inquired, perplexed. "Yes, just them," Daenerys affirmed resolutely. "As you wish, Your Majesty," Arya replied, exiting the chamber to seek out Missandei and Grey Worm. Why was Daenerys behaving so strangely? Arya pondered, her mind in turmoil. Soon, Grey Worm and Missandei arrived at the Queen's chamber. Grey Worm, assemble the Unsullied and the Dothraki army at once. We shall return to Meereen overnight, as swiftly as possible," Daenerys ordered. Grey Worm appeared bewildered, yet his inherent obedience remained unwavering, and he promptly responded, "As you command, Your Majesty. I shall proceed at once." With that, he exited the room. "Your Majesty, you are on the verge of reclaiming the Iron Throne. Why the urgency to return to Meereen now?" Missandei inquired cautiously. "I sense something amiss in Meereen. Daario may be in danger. I cannot afford to lose him as well," Daenerys answered. "What of King's Landing? Do you intend to abandon the Iron Throne?" Missandei pressed further. "I departed from Westeros as an infant. I grew up in Pentos, matured among the Dothraki, and became a queen in Essos. The people there need me now. I must return. As for matters here, I will leave them to Arya and the others," Daenerys stated. "Your Majesty, aside from the Unsullied and the Dothraki army, who else will accompany you back?" "I shall notify them," Arya asked. "The war here is not yet concluded. The northern forces can manage the remaining battles. There will be considerable aftermath once the war ends, so I shall take only Grey Worm and Missandei with me. Everyone else shall remain to handle the aftermath. Arya, once matters here are resolved, will you return to my side?" Daenerys inquired. "Your Majesty, I am your sworn protector. I should accompany you now." Arya suddenly felt a profound difference in Daenerys, and she found herself wanting to follow her without question, nearly forgetting her quest for vengeance. "That cannot be. Your blood feud remains unresolved. Even if you were to accompany me now, you would not find peace. Stay here to settle your affairs, and once completed, come to Meereen to find me, Daenerys instructed. Upon hearing these words, Arya found the situation increasingly perplexing. The Dawn's dream resembled a potion of rebirth, seemingly capable of entirely mending a person's flaws while magnifying their virtues. At that moment, Daenerys was on the verge of becoming a flawless queen, and it seemed imperative to have a thorough discussion with Bran. As you command, Your Majesty, Arya replied. Now, please inform Tyrion and the others to gather in the war room. I have matters to discuss and farewells to bid, Daenerys instructed. Very well, Your Majesty. I shall do so at once. With that, Arya exited the chamber. In the war room, Tyrion and the others soon assembled, and shortly thereafter, Daenerys entered. My friends, I harbor a foreboding sense that Meereen may be in peril. I have decided to lead the Unsullied and the Dothraki forces back to Meereen immediately. The remaining troops in King's Landing are no longer combat effective, and the Northern Army is capable of managing the remainder of the war. The post-war recovery will be entrusted to you all. Tyrion, you shall oversee the recovery efforts and be responsible for selecting the candidates for the Seven Kingdoms. Once everything here is settled, I shall require your presence by my side again, Daenerys commanded. The assembly was taken aback, yet they remained composed, as they were aware of the Dawn's dream plan. As you wish, Your Majesty, they all responded. Your Majesty, it is now midnight. You ought to rest well. It would not be too late to depart in the morning, Tyrion suggested with concern. I cannot afford to wait even a moment longer. The sooner I reach Meereen, the less suffering the people there will endure. I shall set forth immediately, Daenerys asserted resolutely. Understood, Your Majesty. I will manage the affairs here, and subsequently return to Meereen to report to you, Tyrion replied. My friends, we part ways here, whether in Westeros or Essos. I trust we shall meet again, Daenerys said, casting a glance at Jon. Very well, Your Majesty, they answered in unison. Your Majesty, I shall accompany you back. Jon suddenly declared. That is not possible, Jon. If you leave, what will become of the Northern Army? Once matters here are resolved, should you wish, you may come to Meereen and find me, Daenerys responded. Upon hearing this, Jon understood the gravity of the situation. This was not the time for romantic sentiments. He remained silent, his eyes betraying deep reluctance. Daenerys gazed intently at Jon for a moment before departing the war room with Missandei. After reuniting with Grey Worm, they set off towards Essos under the cover of night. Arya, what is happening? The Queen seems to have transformed entirely, and it appears she has not forgotten the Iron Throne, Tyrion inquired. That is a question for Bran to answer. I too am perplexed, Arya replied. It seems we have no choice but to proceed as such. The calamity in King's Landing has passed. The remaining matters are in our hands. Tomorrow morning, we shall devise a plan, Tyrion concluded. With that, the assembly dispersed. Chapter 15. The extraordinary second daughter as the sun gently ascends from the eastern horizon. Its golden rays cascade upon the frigid earth, resembling a warm tapestry. Within the war room, all eyes are gathered. Sam, has the raven been dispatched? Tyrion inquired. Indeed. My Lord Prime Minister, it has been sent. I am confident that Bran and Sansa shall receive it shortly, Sam replied. Excellent. Let us commence our deliberations. King's Landing is within our grasp, yet we must devise a meticulous plan to minimize casualties and losses, Tyrion asserted. Tyrion, do you still intend to spare Cersei's life? She has committed numerous atrocities and has been on my list from the outset, Arya asked coldly. The crimes committed by Cersei cannot be judged solely by me. If we are to capture her alive, it is only right that we all partake in her judgment, Tyrion stated gravely. Moreover, I have an unusual request. The previous negotiations were facilitated by Jaime, and I propose we include him in our discussions. Jaime has maintained an inappropriate relationship with Cersei. This discussion pertains to her very life. How can we trust he won't betray us? Varys interjected. On the eve of the battle against the Night King, Cersei publicly pledged to fight alongside us, yet ultimately contributed nothing, even conspiring to ambush us. Conversely, Jaime honored his word, journeying alone to Winterfell to partake in the battle against the Night King. Daenerys and Bran harbored deep grievances against him. I suspect he was well aware of the peril he would face before arriving at Winterfell, yet he chose to fight for the living. His commitment to Lady Stark, despite her tragic demise, reflects his true knightly nature. I support his involvement, Brienne declared. I concur, Arya suddenly added, seeing the two ladies so resolute. The assembly voiced no further dissent, and soon, Jaime entered the war room. Now that we are all present, let us begin in earnest, Tyrion announced. At present, King's Landing is engulfed in chaos, panic permeating the city, which lacks sufficient military strength. Capturing King's Landing should prove relatively simple. What are your thoughts? Today marks the second day. According to Daenerys' prior strategy, if Cersei does not surrender within 3 days, we shall initiate a full-scale assault, even resorting to slaughter if necessary. Daenerys has since returned to Meereen and entrusted you, my Lord Prime Minister, with command. What shall we do? You have the authority to issue orders, Gendry stated. Friends, during the night in Winterfell, our plan was to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. A direct assault is certainly inadvisable. I suggest we prolong the siege until Cersei voluntarily surrenders, Tyrion proposed. Prolonging the siege, as supplies dwindle, will undoubtedly increase the suffering of innocent civilians within the city and may even incite riots, rendering it counterproductive, Varys analyzed. Yet Cersei will not surrender at this juncture, and a violent assault would only exacerbate casualties. Is there a superior alternative? Tyrion queried. Cersei is now at the end of her tether. Does she hesitate to surrender out of fear of death? Arya remarked. No, Jaime said slowly. She is pregnant and wishes to fight for the chance to live for the child within her. Upon hearing this, Arya turned her gaze towards Tyrion, who nodded slightly, indicating his prior awareness of the situation. I am the father of the child. At this moment, I earnestly implore all present to grant Cersei a chance to survive. I am acutely aware of the multitude of sins she has committed. She could die 1,000 times and still not atone for them. However, for my sake, please allow her and the child a chance at life. I am willing to accept any punishment, Jaime stated sincerely, unabashedly acknowledging his paternity. As I recall, during the War of the Usurper, Tywin led the Lannister army to annihilate the Targaryen family without a shred of compassion. Infants in swaddling clothes, the elderly, the sickly, and even unborn fetuses were subjected to unspeakable slaughter. Queen Rhaella and her unborn child, alongside Viserys, became the sole survivors of the Targaryen lineage, thanks to the desperate protection of Ser Willem Darry. Now we find ourselves debating how to protect a pregnant Lannister woman. It is a stark contrast indeed, Varys remarked thoughtfully. In the Game of Thrones, it is either your demise or mine. There is no need to revisit the past. The transgressions committed by my father, sister, and kin are mine alone to bear. I merely seek that you grant Cersei a chance to live, Jaime declared resolutely. Varys, what did you once profess your loyalty to? Arya suddenly inquired. I am loyal to the people, Lady Stark, Varys responded. Precisely. If Cersei is willing to surrender and relinquish the Iron Throne, she becomes an ordinary citizen. We are the forces of justice, besieging King's Landing to avert further bloodshed. This is the fundamental distinction between us and those scheming for power. Cersei was among the first to be placed on my death list. However, at this moment, I consent to her survival. Sir Jaime's recent conduct sufficiently demonstrates his worthiness as a knight, and we cannot overlook his honor. Nevertheless, Cersei must pay for her transgressions. We, the survivors representing the great houses of the Seven Kingdoms, must collectively hold a public trial for Cersei and devise a fair punishment to prevent her from committing further atrocities. Arya asserted with righteous fervor. Tyrion cast a grateful glance at Arya. He too desired a chance for his siblings to survive, yet felt constrained by his own status to advocate for them directly. To his astonishment, Arya's selfless words at this critical juncture left the assembly without rebuttal, simultaneously granting Jaime and Cersei an opportunity for redemption. I agree, the others responded, all expressing reverence towards the second daughter of House Stark. In contrast, Cersei's sins against the Stark family were particularly grievous. Yet, Arya's ability to set aside her hatred and make such a magnanimous decision left them all feeling humbled. Lady Stark, Lady Catelyn would be proud of you, Brienne remarked, looking at Arya with genuine admiration. Arya, Storm's End stands ready to heed your command, Gendry declared with a face full of affection. Do you recall how you responded when I inquired about the proper use of a sewing needle? Jon asked with a smile. Of course, always point the sharp end at the enemy, Arya replied with a laugh. You were merely 10 years old then, in just a few brief years. You have truly matured. Father taught us the distinction between right and wrong from a young age, and you have grasped its essence profoundly. He would be immensely proud, Jon remarked. Lady Stark, accept my deepest respect. Your heart is as boundless as the ocean, Varys added. The crowd expressed their admiration, and the atmosphere had long since shed its initial tension. I propose that Ser Jaime be the one to negotiate the surrender. Let us communicate what we have just discussed directly to Cersei, allowing her to weigh her options. Should she wish to surrender, she must make a swift decision to spare the innocent citizens further suffering, Arya suggested. I will exert every effort to persuade Cersei to capitulate without disappointing you, Lady Stark, Jaime replied gratefully. Since everyone is in agreement, Jaime, you must depart for the Red Keep at once and return with good news, Tyrion instructed. With that, Jaime departed Dragonstone. heading toward King's Landing. Chapter 16. The final confrontation. At this moment, Cersei stood before the high window of the Red Keep. Gazing down upon the chaotic scene within King's Landing, she observed the city outside, which had once flourished but had now devolved into a mere refuge. Countless refugees and disordered streets bore witness to the city's calamity. At this juncture, Cersei's emotions mirrored the turmoil of the city, a complex tapestry of joy and sorrow. She gripped her wine goblet tightly, a flicker of anguish crossing her eyes, reflecting on the flames of war ignited by her ambition. And the countless innocent lives extinguished in the struggle for the Iron Throne. She was enveloped by a profound melancholy. Yet she remained convinced that all of this was to uphold her family's honor, ensuring that the Lannisters occupied the Iron Throne. However, the undeniable truth loomed before her. The Iron Throne was no longer hers. The tide had turned, yet she remained unwilling to concede. The wind outside caressed her golden hair, flowing like a vast ocean. She tidied her hair, tucking a stray strand behind her ear, exuding the regal authority befitting a queen. Cersei yearned to rally herself, to fight for her family's honor, to battle for the Iron Throne. Nevertheless, despair seeped into her heart like an icy current. She strained to devise a means to reverse her fortunes, but found that everything had slipped away. The enemy was too formidable, and her beloved family felt increasingly distant. She could not accept this reality, yet she felt powerless to alter it. Cersei, at the sound of her name, she turned to see Jaime standing in the doorway. However, she felt little surprise, as if she had anticipated his arrival. "Have you come to witness my downfall? To mock me for not heeding your advice to surrender to your dragon queen?" Cersei said coldly. "She has never been my queen. You have always been my family." "My beloved," Jaime replied resolutely. "Perhaps," Cersei said absently, instinctively touching her abdomen. "Cersei, my dear, it is time to contemplate surrender," Jaime spoke slowly, his tone imbued with boundless concern. Cersei's eyes widened, a flicker of anger and sorrow dancing within them. "Indeed, you have come to persuade me to capitulate. Sir Jaime, have you forgotten your oath? Our Lannister family shall never yield to our foes." She gesticulated passionately, as if fighting for the honor of her lineage. Jaime stepped closer, gently grasping Cersei's hand in an attempt to quell her fervor. "I have not forgotten. I am acutely aware of the present reality. The tides have shifted, and to persist in resistance will only plunge more into the flames of war. Our family has already paid a grievous price, Cersei. It is time to safeguard those who remain." He glanced at her slightly rounded abdomen as he spoke. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Cersei's gaze, yet she stubbornly retorted, "And what of you? Will you betray our family? Will you betray me?" Jaime gazed at her with deep affection, a bittersweet smile gracing his lips. "I vowed to protect you, Cersei, whether in the game of power or in the mundane aspects of life. If you choose to continue fighting, I shall stand by you. But if surrender could secure your safety and that of our family, I would willingly devote my remaining years to shield you." Cersei felt a surge of emotion at his words. She had never imagined that, even now, Jaime loved her so profoundly and was willing to sacrifice everything for her. "Jaime, you truly are a fool," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Jaime chuckled softly, wiping away her tears and embracing her tenderly. "We have both been fools, but at least our foolishness has been sincere. Now, let me accompany you as we face this together. We shall find a way forward." Under Jaime's persuasion and affection, Cersei finally relinquished her stubbornness, contemplating surrender. She understood that this was the final act she could offer her family, and with Jaime by her side, she was willing to confront the uncertainties of the future. The following day, outside the gates of King's Landing, the Northern army stood poised. Tyrion, Jon, Varys, and others awaited at the forefront. As the city gates creaked open, Cersei emerged, Jaime closely behind her, accompanied by a weary contingent of Lannister soldiers led by Gregor. Upon seeing Gregor, Sandor wore a complex expression. Though the hostilities had abated, the fire of rage within him still burned fiercely. Gregor, upon spotting Sandor, instinctively approached him. "Ser Gregor, do not act rashly," Cersei cautioned. Gregor disregarded her entirely, advancing nonetheless. "Gregor, heed your mistress's command," came the admonition. Qyburn seized Gregor's arm in an effort to halt him, but Gregor pinned Qyburn's head, exerting a slight force that snapped his neck. With a decisive tug, Qyburn was left lifeless, tragically meeting his end through his own machinations. Cersei, taken aback by the horrific scene, could only stand in shock while Jaime drew his sword, standing valiantly before her, prepared to counter any assault from Gregor. Gregor cast a glance at Cersei, then turned his scornful gaze toward Jaime, as though he were poised to advance, and similarly snapped Jaime's neck, the atmosphere thick with tension. "Gregor, despite your self-importance, Do you not dare to reveal your true self? Sandor's timely provocation drew Gregor's attention. Pausing momentarily, Gregor charged at Sandor with great strides. The mutated Gregor possessed an astonishing physique and strength, yet lacked the agility of a normal human. Sandor deftly evaded his attack with a nimble sidestep, swiftly plunging a sword into Gregor's chest and deftly removing his helmet. My dear brother, look at what you have become. Neither man nor beast. In this moment, you are worse off than I am. Sandor scoffed, believing he had secured victory with a single strike. To his astonishment, Gregor remained expressionless, seemingly impervious to pain. With one hand gripping Sandor's throat, he extracted the sword from his chest, green liquid oozing from the wound. In a moment of panic, Sandor brandished his dagger and thrust it into Gregor's right eye, the blade penetrating deep enough to pierce his skull. This fatal blow finally caused Gregor to stagger, allowing Sandor to escape. However, Gregor's subsequent actions left everyone in stunned silence. With his right hand grasping the dagger's hilt, he slowly pulled it free, the green liquid continuing to spurt from the wound. Before he swung his massive sword violently at Sandor, the air roared with the force of the blows, stones shattering around them. He appeared less like an injured man and more like a mutated beast, his colossal form and muscular physique resembling that of a stone sculpture. Utterly unaffected by the grievous injury, faced with such an adversary, Sandor dared not be careless, constantly evading Gregor's relentless assault, seeking opportunities to counterattack amidst the onslaught. The seemingly limitless strength within Gregor, combined with his inability to feel pain, unleashed wave after wave of ferocious strikes, narrowly missing Sandor on several occasions. Sandor, I will assist you, Arya cried out, watching the harrowing battle unfold, her concern for Sandor's safety mounting against Gregor's might. Little wolf, this is my personal affair. I must conclude it myself. No one is to aid me. Though Sandor found himself at a disadvantage, his sense of honor firmly resisted any assistance. You will die? Arya shouted. I have survived for so many years. I owe it to myself to end this matter with my own hands, or I shall never find peace in death. Sandor roared defiantly. Understanding her old friend's stubbornness, Arya reluctantly relented, knowing that her interference might worsen the situation. The crowd stood in hushed awe, speechless at the unprecedented clash before them. Sandor's gaze sharpened. He recognized the urgent need to discover Gregor's weakness, for without it, victory in this battle seemed utterly unattainable. He began to patiently circle Gregor, biding his time for the opportune moment. At last, during a moment when Gregor swung his colossal sword in a fierce assault, Sandor seized the opportunity to evade the blade's edge. He deftly twisted Gregor's arm and forcefully hurled him to the ground, the immense impact creating a large crater beneath him. Nevertheless, Gregor rose once more, seemingly unfazed. His eyes shimmered with fury, igniting an even greater fervor for battle within him. He let out a wild howl and lunged at Sandor again, brandishing his enormous sword. Sandor exerted every ounce of energy to evade the strike, yet Gregor ensnared him. Gripping Sandor's right eye with a vice-like hold and squeezing with a force reminiscent of the moment he had crushed Oberon's skull, blood streamed down Sandor's cheek, staining the earth below. He let out a wretched scream, yet despite the agony, he refused to surrender. He understood that defeating Gregor was the only way to ensure his own safety and that of others. Gripping his sword tightly, he summoned all his strength and aimed for the hand that clutched him, delivering a decisive blow that severed Gregor's arm. The brute staggered slightly, and Sandor swiftly followed with another strike that cleaved through Gregor's wicked head. At last, Gregor's body fell to the ground, lifeless and still. Sandor, expending his final breath, struggled to rise, battered and bruised. He gasped for air, gazing at Gregor's corpse, and let out a chilling laugh before collapsing. Elia hurried forward and embraced Sandor. I've grown up, and I've avenged you. Now I can rest, Sandor replied with a bittersweet smile. Elia said nothing, silently watching as Sandor closed his eyes. Perhaps, for him, this was indeed the most fitting conclusion. At least, there were no regrets.